Wow, we're live.
What?
We're live, but that's crazy.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna turn my camera off.
Maybe I shouldn't do it this early.
Yeah, Isaiah, I normally wait until everyone's on, and then I like right before 6:30, and then I'll kind of warn everyone that's on the panelist here that I'm
Okay.
gonna go live, so they know that we're live. So you know, because we probably shouldn't be having like personal discussions now, which
At this
tends,
point, right? Yeah.
so yeah, probably wait until everyone's on and we're ready to start next time.
See, because I had thought that it doesn't do it until the webinar. Just the
No,
webinar, but okay, it
yeah,
doesn't.
as soon as you like enter those fields and like hit start, it begins going live.
Okay, good to know.
I think all right.
Well, we are live, everyone.
Yeah, all right.
Isaiah, I
Hey,
still
Peggy.
did not receive the November meeting minutes. Do
So, Peggy, we're just doing, if I'm not mistaken, we're just doing October 15th minutes today. I'm still working on the November
Oh,
17th, whatever it is. Yeah, so I think we'll be, if I remember correctly, we'll be reviewing those minutes at the December blah zee blah, whatever the heck it
today's
is.
December 2nd.
Yeah, we have
And
another December meeting, the regularly scheduled December meeting. I want to say the 17th.
okay.
It is the 17th. Hi,
Yeah,
guys.
thank you.
Hello.
That's right, Kyle, right?
I think he's
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Just we're streaming live right now, so everyone is aware. Just FYI.
I'll be right back.
Hey Justin, just heads up, we are streaming this live currently, even though we haven't started the webinar yet. So just be aware that we're streaming this out to YouTube,
No worries, no hot mic here.
right? All right. Oh, Joyce is on. Joyce, we are streaming live currently, but we haven't begun the webinar, so we have quorum. I know that Ruby is unable to attend the meeting tonight. She had a family emergency come up last minute. So I think this is everyone. I guess Leon, I don't see him. He might be in the attendees list when we start the meeting, but we do have quorum. So at your word, Madam Chair, we can begin the meeting.
Muted, Madam Chair.
You are muted.
Okay, good evening. It being 6:31 p.m. on December 2nd, 2025, I call this meeting of the Brockton Conservation Commission to order. This meeting is being conducted remotely in accordance with Governor Healy's open meeting provision extension signed on March 28th, 2025, which extends access to certain remote and hybrid meetings until June 30th, 2027. Real-time public participation and comment can be addressed to the Conservation Commission utilizing the Zoom virtual meeting software for remote access. If you wish to comment during a public input portion of a hearing, please use the raise your hand function to be addressed at the appropriate time. For those of you joining by phone only, please press *9 to raise your hand. Please note that all comments made are public record and should be made in a way that is respectful of others. Should personal or inflammatory remarks be made, the host reserves the right to mute the speaker. A copy of this recording will be posted on the City of Brockton webpage. All votes will be done via roll call vote to ensure count accuracy. In order to establish quorum, I ask that each commissioner state your first and last name for the record.
Peggy Curtis.
Lily
Here.
Green.
Sharifa Map.
Justin Talbot.
Joyce Warris. And is Leon here?
I don't see him in the attendees. I'll keep an eye out for him.
Okay. So we have 5 members present, so quorum is met. Okay. So the first item on the agenda are the meeting minutes from October 15th. Commissioners, did you have a chance to read through the minutes? Okay. Does anyone have any changes or additions or comments about the meeting? The minutes?
Madam Chair, my only comment is I rely heavily on you on this one. So
Yeah.
whatever you go with, I'm going with.
These were really nicely done. Thank you, Isaiah. Yeah, I don't have any changes or anything. Any comments?
Oh, well, all right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I would entertain then a motion to accept the minutes. That's right.
I'll make a motion to accept the October 15th, 2025 meeting minutes as read.
I second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Curtis, I.
Green, aye.
Map I.
Talbot, aye.
Boris, aye. And that motion passes. The next item on the agenda, under commission matters, is the subject of fencing. Kyle, would you like to address the commission about that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So to begin with, this is specifically with regard to the subdivision development off of Quincy Street. This is 2 cul-de-sacs that have been constructed by CLM Development, Charlie Macy's company. So this is the Austin Court cul-de-sac and the Debbie Road extension. When we were reviewing a certificate of compliance request for one of these lots off of Debbie Road extension, not pictured or not displayed on the as-built was some fencing that had been installed on one of the homes. We talked about this a couple months ago. The concern at that point was how the commission wants to address fencing kind of as a whole throughout the whole subdivision, with the concern being that once one home puts up a fence, it might just cascade down the line. So that's kind of what's happened. After that initial discussion, we have been out on site. Several of the commission members, Chair Voris, Commissioner Mapp, Talbot, and Clay were all on a site visit with the developer and myself. And we kind of looked at the fencing as after it was observed that an additional home had been put fencing up. And ultimately, the fencing was not included on the notices of intent for any of these developments. That's not to say that it can't be approved, but the commission does need to weigh in one way or the other on the fencing because it doesn't meet the standard for a minor exempt activity as defined in the act. The purpose of this discussion tonight is to specifically talk about fencing at this development on Debbie Road Extension. And what we think is appropriate. If we're fine with what's there, I've got some photos I can share. We do have 4 of the commission members that were on site 3 or 4 weeks ago now. So we can kind of have that discussion. I've got a site plan that I've pulled up that I can kind of show you kind of the concern real quick, if that's okay, and then I'll open
Please
it
do.
up for discussion with the commission.
Please
Okay.
do.
So I'm going to share my screen. This is for the notice of intent application for the subdivision as a whole, rather than each individual lot, but it does show the lot lines, roughly where the road is, and most importantly for us, obviously, where the wetlands are. So I've got a couple things here. First off, does this map show the Mass Mapper map? Did that change correctly?
That
Okay.
is Mass Mapper, yeah.
Okay, great. So this kind of shows broadly, where we're dealing with. Initially, we're looking at this entire lot is the lot that's being developed. Several, obviously, individual lots now, but it was one large wooded area to begin with. These blue areas are kind of roughly where the wetlands have been delineated. So there's one kind of wetland system that kind of goes up north-south through this way, and a second one wetland system over on the east side of the whole much larger lot. The fences have been installed on 91, 105, Debbie Road at least. And the concern is the fencing that was installed is like a solid vinyl fence that does not allow wildlife to potentially traverse, through the fence line. So my concern and what I'd like the commission to weigh in on is we have. I'm going to switch back to the plan set now. We have the wetland system here to the left, and then the one all the way over to the east, and then all these homes that are going to be built up in between. And the concern is if we all have fences that are similar to the ones that are currently installed at these 2 lots, all the way down through this area, that any wildlife that happens to be in this protected wooded area they don't really have a mechanism to get over to this area, and that will impact what types of critters can even like survive and reproduce and thrive in these areas. One of the interests that the commission is tasked with protecting is protection of wildlife habitat. That's just definitionally in the act. So we need to weigh in on this one way or the other. The commission can absolutely kind of sign off on the fencing as is, but we can also request that portions of the fence be removed or swapped out with a different type of fence to allow for wildlife to move through the area. So again, the kind of concern is wildlife being able to move from this wetland system potentially over to this wetland system. So that's kind of where things are. I will go ahead and share some photos. These were photos that were taken in September of the fencing. This is part of the request for that certificate of compliance. And I have some photos that were taken later on. So this is the type of fencing that we're talking about here. There's a solid vinyl fence. There's no room underneath it, and it's pretty high. At least 5 feet. So not many things can jump over it. This fence in particular doesn't have a back to it, but it does close out at the front of the home, and there's no gate or any access onto the road or across the road to the wetland system, which is in this kind of wooded area behind this greenhouse that you can see here. So this is the type of fencing that's been installed kind of in the next couple lots down. These are kind of irrelevant areas here. So, all right, I'm going to switch over to the pictures that we took when we were on the site visit with a few of the commission members in October. Separate issues here. So this is again the same type of fencing here, and this blue house is the next house down from the one that we were originally looking at in the last set of photos, which was this gray house. And they've done a very similar thing where they have this long fence here, and they've got it closed up by the house, and they've got a chain link fence in the back. So The fencing that's within buffer zone is within the jurisdiction of the commission, and the commission can weigh in on what they think is appropriate. And that's kind of, I guess, where I'll leave it open for discussion. I can share some more photos, but again, Commissioner Voris, Talbot, and Matt have been out in person at this site.
Can you show us on the map where the where the fence goes? How deeply into the buffer zone does the fence go?
So it's kind of hard to say because we don't have an as-built that includes the
Oh,
fence for
okay.
any of these.
Yeah.
I think we were looking at this home here and this home. And so really, the back of the fence would definitely be within the buffer zone. Um, a lot of these homes are far enough away that, any fencing near the road or near the home itself is kind of outside of the commission's jurisdiction. So there is like limited capacity here, but at minimum, the commission needs to weigh in on whether these fences are fine because they weren't included in that notice of intent submission originally, but they're there now and they're asking for these certificates of compliance, or they ultimately will be asking for them. So before they construct fencing along the entire subdivision, I thought we should have this discussion. That way we can give some guidance to the developer on what we're kind of looking for to be done here. So the first lot had that fence. It didn't close out the back of the yard because there's not much backyard that's outside of the 25-foot buffer zone here. And it went along this property line and then connected to the home here. But then this home decided to build a fence, and that basically they obviously there's one along the property line here. They have one along the property line here. That closes up by the home, and then there's that chain link fence kind of across the back. Um, and I understand the need for privacy or the want for privacy and a privacy fence. And I think that a solid, vinyl fence along the lot line between the lots is fine. But my concern is, are we restricting wildlife potential travel, kind of east to west across the subdivision?
What about having a split rail on the back of the homes? And if they want to have the vinyl, like you said, between the property lines, like I know aesthetically, this is what probably, people may not want the split rail on the side of the houses, but for the back at least, if they wanted some form of protection.
I mean, that's certainly an option. We have limited capacity to dictate like on this lot here where my cursor is. If they wanted to
Mhm.
kind of close off by the driveway in the front of the home, kind of outside your jurisdiction. And if they want to have a solid fence there, that's just the way that it is there. But the commission could certainly require that at least the back portion of the fence be a split rail fence rather than the solid vinyl or the chain link.
Is
So
the chain link okay?
Well, the chain link inhibits wildlife movement as much as the vinyl fence.
yeah, if it's all the way down and it's too high,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. yeah. I'm not
I
sure. Oh, go ahead, Peggy.
I had a concern. If you put the split rail across the back, but the front has the white vinyl fencing, wouldn't that trap the animals in their yards?
Yes. Yeah. So if basically the front of all these homes, if it's a solid vinyl fence, we're just kind of pushing out the area that the animals have access to, and like whether that's worth it or not to go through the hassle and to require this. One of these homes has the chain link fence already installed, but again, they should have come to the commission for that installation. We got to weigh that as well. But that's kind of that's kind of your job. It's a tough one, especially when it's kind of splitting hairs like this. So.
Yeah, yeah. Perhaps in the future, when we have a big subdivision like this, where there are wetlands throughout the subdivision on opposite sides, perhaps it would be up to the developer to put the fences in a way that would allow natural corridors, as opposed to the individual, instead of the individual homeowner.
Yeah.
And then that would be part of the sale. I mean, it would have to be part of that construct,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, so it was kind of tough here because when we went through this permitting process, we required the subdivision, the roadway, the stormwater, all to be done under one notice of intent, and then each
Right.
subsequent home that was developed that was within the commission's jurisdiction has its own separate notice of intent. So there's not really like a holistic uh, notice of intent that includes the actual building, rather outside of like the roadway construction. But that is certainly something to consider in the future as you're issuing
Yeah.
new orders of conditions. But the ones that have been issued for this property did not include that fence
Yeah.
or the fencing at all. And the fencing that is within the commission's jurisdiction, the commission should, well, at least the vinyl fencing, should weigh in one way or the other. They should have either gotten approval beforehand or
Yes.
after the fact. In which case, the after the fact approval can be just kind of wrapped into that certificate of compliance request. And if that's the case, we don't really need to take any action tonight. But if the commission does want to require modifications to the fencing that's allowed, then we will have to kind of reach out to these property owners and kind of coordinate that.
Mhm. I'm not seeing wildlife getting through those privacy fences if they're boxed in the front and on all sides at
Yeah.
all.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question to piggyback off of Peggy and Kyle? You can help too. The non-jurisdictional, they can put a fence up and close in their front, correct? Are
There
we
may
out
be
of the buffer
other
zone or not?
there may be other issues with that, but as far as the commission's concerned, I mean, like the zoning, there might be some zoning concerns, or like the building code might dictate how high the fence can be or whatever. But as far as the commission's concerned, out of our jurisdiction, if it's not within the
Right.
100-foot buffer zone. So
Where I
if
was
it meets
going
all
is
the
if it
other
was,
standards for building within the city, they can do whatever they want.
So if they're next to the other wetland, but they're not quite close enough to that wetland to say you can't have that, you can, if they're with outside of that 100 foot,
Yep.
they can put anything up that they want, even if it's going to box the wildlife coming from the other side.
Yeah, so let's look at this lot, lot 17. I'm not sure what the street address is. This is one that we did not have an individual notice of intent for the construction of the home because all of the construction associated with the home itself is outside of that 100-foot buffer zone, which is this red line back here.
Right.
They could put a fence, vinyl fence, along this 100 foot and basically be outside of our jurisdiction. We couldn't weigh in on that at all. But if they wanted to go all the way back to where the lot was cleared, which is close to where the 50-foot is, they would have, and it's something beyond like a post and rail fence, they would have to, file with the commission in some way.
Which is why I think a development-wide fencing protocol makes so much more sense. I don't know, but whatever. So Justin, what do you think about that?
well, that was where I was going, man. Excuse me, Madam Chair. Like Sharifa said, if we can't do anything with that, but at least we could do a post and rail in the back that gives access out, not across. I mean, there's different types of post and rail, obviously two, three, all that, but um, it's a tough one.
I wonder if we could do post and rail back and front. But we couldn't do the front because that's beyond the 100 foot.
We could request that they put a post and rail fence in the front if it's outside the jurisdiction, explaining the commission's reasoning for that. But there's no enforcement.
Yeah, because it does say for a barrier to wildlife movement is a critical requirement. The fence design cannot create a solid barrier that prevents animals, from rabbits to deer, from moving freely through the landscape.
And that's just to be able to be qualified as that minor exempt activity, which wouldn't need the commission's way in. The commission can absolutely permit, a solid vinyl fence within a buffer zone, but that needs to be before the commission. The commission needs to weigh in on that one way or the other.
Commissioners? Sharifa, Lily, Peggy?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Outside of the split rail, that's the only thing I could suggest.
Yeah,
But
it
again,
sounds.
go ahead, Lily, sorry.
No, sorry. I was just gonna say it sounds like from what we have jurisdiction over, especially the like back part of it, closer to the wetland line sounds like we should decide on that, and we could do what Kyle should request, ask them if they are willing to change the front ones to the post and rail, but we can't enforce it, but we can at least ask. But we can enforce the one close to the wetland line. So if I think we should decide if that's what we want to do, is if they want to put a fence in the back part closer to the wetland line, that it be a fence like a post and rail or something that's not going to impede wildlife.
With the understanding though that wildlife need to have movement from one wetland resource area to the other, right? So
Yeah.
kind of
So,
do need it both front and back throughout the subdivision.
and we can do our best to explain that that's the reasoning and why we're making the request for the front fence, but like how I said, it's not in our jurisdiction, but we can do the best we can to explain to them why, and maybe if we can explain it in a good way, maybe they'll understand and change it, but I mean, they might decide to change it, but who knows, the next owner that lives with it might decide to rip it up and put in
Yeah, they may
a
not
vinyl
want deer
fence.
around their hostas. Yeah. Peggy, any questions or comments?
Um, just agreeing with what Lily and Sharifa say, the back end that's bordering the vegetated wetland, definitely they should be putting up posts and rails. And then if they want to participate in the same thing with protecting wildlife, you can ask them if they would do their front also. But we have no jurisdiction over their front, um, so I agree with that.
And then just to piggyback on this, we are then I'm just kind of, is the commission okay with the solid fencing kind of between the properties as kind of a privacy fence, and just the post rail in the back is kind of what we're thinking?
If it's there already and everyone wants that privacy, I'm sure the homes are quite close together.
Could we suggest some greenery, arborvitaes? I know they take a while to grow, but
You mean instead?
instead, a suggestion to throw it in if they didn't want to do the posted rail in the front. You know,
I mean, we can certainly suggest that. I mean, these fences were kind of installed without like commission approval.
yeah.
Um,
So going
so,
forward at the subdivision, are we going to request that there be?
well, they should. I mean, like, we need to make the developer and the
Yeah,
buyers aware that that's something that they need to at least run by the commission before they move forward on fence installation.
and then what would you suggest, Kyle? How would they move forward with that? Would they have to do like a determination of applicability, or would they actually have to file an NOI if
You
they're
could
within buffer
you
zone?
could you could maybe go get away with an RDA. I mean, it probably just depends on what's being proposed
Yeah.
in the proximity to the wetland area. Obviously, the goal isn't to be, obstructive, and keep people from doing what they want with their property. But at the same time, we got to balance things. So just to keep things moving, I guess I'm going to advise the developer that if people in this development want to put fences in the back of the yard, the commission wants post and rail fences on like the back end facing the wetland area. They can have the solid vinyl fencing as kind of a privacy fence along the property lines between the lots. And then we can request that the front of the fenced-in area be also posted rail to allow that wildlife movement. But that's something that when we reach out to these property owners and the developer, we'll make it very clear that those areas are outside of our jurisdiction, and it's more of that's an ask and an optional thing that they can do rather than a requirement. But the commission can absolutely require post rail fence in the back of the lot, assuming that's within the 100-foot buffer zone.
Or as Sharifa said, if they'd like some privacy in the front, certainly arborvitae would provide more privacy than a post and rail fence.
Oh yeah, certainly.
So maybe some options, could be offered.
Yeah, but again, that's outside of the
But-
commission's jurisdiction. We can provide options and ideas, but
Yeah,
no enforcement there.
okay.
All right, we don't need a formal vote or anything. This is just kind of a discussion. I'll reach out to the developer after the meeting. and have this discussion with him.
And then could I ask too that in the future, when there's large areas, like multiple wetlands in one area or multiple resource areas within one big subdivision, that the fencing issue could be dealt wide on a as a subdivision? Would that be possible to make sure that there are corridors?
Yeah, we can certainly keep that in mind as we move forward as a commission. That this issue will come up. So this is kind of a learning experience, you know. So as we all move forward with our work here with the Conservation Commission, we should certainly keep that in mind as we do more large developments like this one.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay. Before we go on, I just wanted to make a quick announcement about the continued filings that we have for this evening. In case there's anyone from the public that's here to hear any of these applications. The first one is number 3, 940 Belmont Street. Number 4, 549 Copeland Street. Number 6, 0 Hammond Street. Number 7, 68 12th Avenue. Number 8, 196 Manley Street. Number 9, 484 Pleasant Street. Number 10, 1824 Main Street. Number 12, 31 Otis Street. And number 1423 River Street. Those filings will be continued until the next meeting, which is December, what is it, 17th?
December 17.
Yeah. Okay. I will need a motion to continue those, please.
I make a agenda items listed by our chairwoman to the December 17th meeting.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Curtis, I.
I froze there for a second.
Mhm.
Did my motion go through?
No.
Oh, sorry, I was making a motion.
Oh, okay.
I froze while I was making it, I guess. Did someone else make it?
I think the motion was made and seconded, right?
The motion was made. I'm sorry. Your roll call.
Yeah, roll call. We were
What was
doing
your
roll
name?
call. And it was Peggy and your turn, Lily.
Oh, yes, green, I, what? I forget, sorry.
Okay.
Matt, aye.
Talbot, aye.
And Boris, aye. Okay, so that passes. Thank you. Okay, so that would mean the first actual hearing on the agenda will be number 5, a notice of intent for 0 Lawton Avenue.
Yeah, if I may give a quick summary of action, Madam Chair, then I'll open it up to the applicant's representative.
Please.
So this is a notice of intent for 0 Lawton Avenue. The applicant is proposing developing this lot and putting a single-family dwelling there. I think I've got a hand raised. I think this is the applicant's representative. I'm gonna just promote him real quick. Okay. Well, all right. But anyway, so the proposal is a single-family dwelling on 0 Lawton Avenue. We have referred this out for peer review. PAR Corporation has been doing that review for us. I'm also going to promote Greg LaCroix, who is the reviewing agent on behalf of the commission with PAR. Promote him to panelist. And in any case, so this we sent this out for peer review at the beginning of the year. PAR did that initial peer review. They issued the first round of peer review comments in April, and since then the applicant hasn't formally responded to those comments. So we spoke about this very briefly, I think in October, and the commission asked me to reach out to the applicant and ask that they respond formally to PAR's comments so we can just continue with the peer review process and ultimately get this permitted. At that point, the applicant's a representative or one of their representatives, their environmental consultant reached out to me and we had a discussion about how to move forward with this, and they've got some questions, I guess, with the commission, and ultimately, I think we're just hoping to have a discussion about the current state of the review, if this is something that is ultimately permittable, or if it's not really worth the applicant's time to kind of pursue this specific development at this lot. So given that, I'm going to throw it over to the applicant's representative, and they can begin to kind of speak to the commission about this, and then I can also pull up some site plans if we need to look at things later. All right, through the chair. Thank you.
Will we hear from Pear as well?
Yeah, Greg is on the call, and he's here to kind of answer questions about the peer review that they've done. If the commission has concerns about the environmental constraints that have been noted in that first round of peer review.
Okay, thank you.
At your convenience, Glenn Krawalski from EBT Environmental.
Okay, you're the telephone?
I am the telephone. We had another hearing, and I'm on the telephone. Glenn Krawalski from EBT Environmental,
Hi, Glenn,
Oxford,
thank
Mass.
you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. When you're ready.
Please go ahead.
Thank you again. Reviewing the peer review, and specifically the LiDAR question on, which I have open to, on the review of delineation. And there was a question on the second paragraph, I believe, or under number 3, the peer reviewer did suggest using LiDAR because this lot had been filled in prior to the peer reviewer, and there was some restoration required there. And Mr. Lopes got a hold of EBT Environmental. We went out to look at the site. And yes, some fill had been removed from the wetland, and as stated, not all of it was reviewed. The dock A horizon, A or O, it doesn't look like an O, but it's definitely a dock A, wetland soils, and underneath it's hydric soils, and there's some fill still left on the top of that old topsoil in the wetland. And we did recognize that, and there was some talk about that through the peer review. But clearly we do agree with the peer reviewer that the LiDAR may be the best way to identify wetland, the wetland edge between wetland flag 101 and number 4, as brought up in the peer review. And the reason why is this was a leftover lot, not developed. We looked at ages of the houses generally in that area in 1961. And over the years, there had been fill. Probably some of it most likely came in, or could have come in after, but before the wetland reg, and then after the reg, and then it was left there, and that became the edge of the wetland at some point before Mr. Lopes bought the property. And because there's not a clear A, B, C horizon under this old fill, potentially prior to, again, regulation, I see where PAR easily would say use LiDAR to determine what the edge looked like, the wetland upland edge off the road prior to this recent fill by Mr. Lopes. So we looked at, luckily in your region, from Sturbridge westward, we don't have 1-foot contours that are quick availability the engineers do, but you have 1-foot contours there online, and we looked at 164 is being plus or minus the elevation over at number 4 and generally at 101. These are areas that hadn't been altered by the recent fill, and the elevation could be 163.5. We did have a conversation with the engineering company, which I see there are 7 hearings they have on your agenda, and with that, they did send us the elevations of those 2 flags that are not being argued by or being cited by PAR as being potentially off.
Hey, Glenn,
we
may I
would
interrupt
look
you
at
for a moment? I pulled
Yeah.
up the site plan, Glenn, so I'm gonna just
Yeah,
highlight those 2 flags that you're mentioning.
who is talking.
That's Kyle, the agent. This
Thank
is
you,
the-
sir.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Glenn. Sorry for the interruption. So on my shared
No,
screen,
thank you.
yeah,
you.
this is wetland flag
So-
4 that Glenn was mentioning here, and then this is wetland flag 101. The exact delineation between these flags based upon the historic fill was not originally determined. So that's kind of what
Right.
he's referring to now is how can we determine the extent of the wetland underneath this historic fill between these two
Thank
flags that on the original submission they just kind of drew a straight line between them, and that's obviously not necessarily the proper wetland line. All right, thank you, Glenn. I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for showing the commission, but it's not the wetland line under the historic fill, because there's nobody proving that the wetland could have been right up against the road at some point back in 65, 66. Who knows? We do know that the Wetland Protection Act changed in 91, where every day the fill stays in a wetland is a separate violation. So in most cases, commissions aren't going back before the act changed, which due to the grant decision. Before, so most people aren't going back before 91 because it's a hard press. But every day fill stays in place after 91 when the act changed, not the regulation, the act. And then you can go after that old fill. So I'm not looking for what the wetland edge might have been back in 65 or something. I'm looking at what the wetland edge, as Par had brought up, what did the wetland edge look like prior to this fill that came in, recent fill? And so we'll go back to that, and somewhere between that 101 and 4, there was a wetland edge. And as Par suggested, under number 3, second page, was use LiDAR. So we went and used LiDAR. We sent it to the engineer. We eventually did get the elevations of 4 and 101, which we appreciate very much from the engineering company after a conference call. But there still needs refinement in the field. We would go to the field and we would look at the elevations given us. We would work with Par and or your consultant, Mr. Kyle Holden, and come up with that line, again, using the old LiDAR prior to fill, and determine that line. It's around, generally, 164 or 163 and a half. That being said, we can finally come to, I believe, an agreement on what the line looked like prior to Mr. Lopes filling the wetland. Then we have a notice of intent by, again, JK, and it did call for replication of wetland under 310 CMR 10.554B1 through 7, which is, may I fill some wetland. This is a headwater, somewhat degraded area. The lot below us is fill. You can see the large piles of fill within the wetland, because again, back in the day, before the wetland reg, this was potentially a dumping ground, most likely, like other neighborhood areas. You dump your material, you look for a place to dump it, nobody lives there, and there it goes in. What we're proposing is, yes, identify the wetland edge and have Par, of course, look at it and at some point come to an agreement, 164, 163 and a half, somewhere in that general range. And then we did submit a letter, and it is possible that the commission allow for, obviously it's a may clause, the 1055 clause, may you fill something up to 5,000 square feet, replication. The applicant under the JK plan looks at 884 square feet of lost wetland, and then replication using upland. But what we bring into the EBT Inc., in which we do, and again, I wasn't on the line with you the last meeting on another project, we look at mitigation in improvement of habitat, just as the conservation was. Again, I would just say that I was a former chairman back in '85 and been a peer reviewer for other commissions, 70 projects all over the state at this point. And then so what we are proposing is, this is a shallow wetland system. I believe Ms. Kyle might have shared my November 26th letter with you. In that letter, I propose this being a headwater area, and I also work with the client. When I was there back in August, during and after the even drought was declared, we still have groundwater discharge. I work with French drains, and I apologize that my letter wasn't clear if you did read it. It says upgrading catch basins. It shouldn't have had French drain just by itself in parentheses. So what it appears is, prior to development, most of these areas, you would have had agriculture prior to development, it does appear that there was potentially a French drain. Why do I call it a French drain? And actually, it's not from France. The guy's last name was French, if you look up where they flagged French. But it has to do with tile drains and draining land to make it more productive for agriculture. But also, people were doing it to build subdivisions. I have a project in, I hate to bring other projects, but I'll be brief, in Shrewsbury, where in 65 they put stream improvement and they channeled and piped 3,000 feet of a brook, West Brook, into Lake Quincy. Who cares? The point is, back when, before reg, there was a lot of draining that took place to make agricultural fields. I lecture on damming to drain it in the agricultural era.
Mr. Kropos,
And,
could you stay
Sure.
with this particular site, please? I'm just getting a little confused, okay? Thank you. This is Joyce,
What
the
site?
chair.
What site?
The site that we're talking
A
about.
particular site?
Yeah, this
The
particular
site
site.
is Zero Lawton. It's on the agenda, Zero Lawton.
Right, right. I just wanted you to concentrate on that particular one. I was just getting a little confused.
Yes, of course.
Thank
So
you.
on Lawton, thank you very much. I appreciate. On Lawton, we would look at improving habitat, create a refuge, make a deeper pool, restore the wetlands in adjacent that had been filled, and actually make a refuge, because this is a headwater, somewhat isolated wetland. The beginning of the wetland begins, from what we see, directly on the next lot above us, and it's clear water, groundwater. It doesn't have fine colloidal silts. It doesn't appear any catch basins are dumping through this system, as there's, again, no fine colloidals, no silts. My client did look at it during rain events, and the water stayed clear. It did increase. The groundwater would increase because we're dealing with a Merrimack soil in this area that is high porous. So if it rains heavy enough, you're going to get water infiltrating into any French drain, dumping out. And because of the quality of the water, and I did supply one photo of it, but we can do sediment testing, TSS or NTUs, to prove that the water, the quality doesn't change. And so what EBT was proposing was to increase habitat, both as a deeper pooling area. If you didn't read my letter, 1.5 feet deep, restore the wetlands, and replicate still under the 55 clause, less than a fifth of what's allowed to be asked to replicate or lose, should I say. And we would ask for a site inspection by either PA and or Mr. Holden to both look at the wetland line and go over in the field what we're proposing. If the commission thought that they would entertain my proposal. I'll leave it at that for any questions.
Questions, commissioners?
Hello?
Hi, questions, commissioners? I'm just a little bit confused. Where exactly, can you indicate, Kyle, can you indicate on the map where this suggested pooling area would be? You know?
I'm not sure where they're proposing that.
I can explain it.
If it's 1.5 deep, do you mean 1.5 feet deep?
Yes, if I could explain, it would be generally in the area that is set on the plan. If you're looking at it where it says plot 11, it would be in the wetland. And in my, I have to ask if any of you had seen my letter dated November 26th.
Yeah, I do. I have it right in front of me, actually. That's why I was wondering where the 1.5.
Thank you, ma'am. So it would be in the wetland. The wetland begins just up gradient on the lot 172-443. Seems like the land was drained. This is being the first place it discharges, high quality water, minimum depth, very little habitat. We would work to increase habitat, which is allowed. Obviously, it was not a bad thing to increase habitat in a habitat generally devoid area with subdivisions all around us. So yes. So if you read my letter, that's what we would be proposing.
I just wasn't sure exactly where.
And the actual area isn't defined until we stake it out in the field. It's put on the plan, shown specifically, but it would be within that altered area, wetland, which I believe it shows on the plan. It's in that area of between the words plot 11 and they altered wetland in that area. So it could be within 30 feet in diameter, 25, 30 feet, 1.5 feet deep, organic base, plants. This thing does flow year round. It's shallow. It flows down gradient as a shallow stream. This would be increasing pooling area within this small system as it does go back underground after it leaves this subdivision, eventually pops back up. We did follow it to where it becomes daylighted again and then back underground.
According to the
Thank
plan
you.
that I'm just looking at right now, it says wetland area to be filled 884 square feet.
That would be for the base of the house, right? That would
And
be,
this is proposed, right? This hasn't happened yet?
That's correct. The notice of intent is in front of the conservation now, both for as far as for 2 points. One, restoration of the wetland, looking at where the wetland line actually is to restore up to, and then JK, if I can say that, they had proposed a house. Again, EBT was called in to delineate the wetlands. I stated that they can't be delineated by A, B, and C soils because it's old fill even inland towards Welford Street, and it would have to be done by, as I said, LiDAR would be one of the best methods because of discerning old fill to new fill. The problem that I have, and we do that quite often. 1/3 of my projects are restoration. That's how many people get in trouble. But you can't do it once the fill has been removed, as part of it was removed by the applicant, and now it's disrupted that very edge. So you can't go from old fill with leaves and brush growing on the slope, and then the new fill coming in, and then you remove the old fill, you go into that interface. The interface is gone. So I can't look at, again, an old fill line with a distinction from the new fill, because that old fill, new fill line has been disrupted.
okay. Thank you so much for now. If we could hold on for just a few minutes. Kyle, could you just show us where the 25 and 50-foot buffer zones are for that site?
Sure. So on this site plan, the 100 foot's all the way over on the north side of Wellsford Street. 50 foot kind of bisects the street here. The 25 foot is here. But again, I want to kind of refocus, and I think
Yeah,
if you'll give me a moment here.
I would appreciate that very much.
So Glenn, I appreciate you kind of talking through that proposal. That was not really what I thought we were going to be discussing here, what the ask of the commission was going to be tonight.
Yes.
Based upon our previous discussion, I thought we were talking about basically the May clause and whether or not this project is something that the commission will ultimately approve, or if it's not worth going through this back and forth with between yourself and the engineering firm and the our consultant, Par Corp, in developing something that meets the standards, if ultimately the commission's not interested in permitting something that has, the footprint of the building within like 3 feet or whatever of where the wetland restored line would be. The proposal that you're talking about, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Glenn, is a way to augment
Mitty.
the habitat of the
Oh, I'm
existing
sorry.
wetland, and that's been impacted by the fill. And as you mentioned before, kind of in this area to the north of the plot text between that and the area
Yes.
that's filled. So Glenn's talking about constructing excavating more material out of here, and I think creating a deeper kind of pool in this region. Is that correct, Glenn?
That's correct. And I would call it mitigation. Thank you.
Okay, but that's kind of we can certainly entertain that if we are moving forward with the in either case with the construction of the home or with just
Yes.
restoration under the enforcement order. That might be an option for the commission to consider. My thought, and I'm open for discussion here on this, but my thought was the commission should weigh in on their appetite for the development of this lot as a whole.
Yes.
With specific citation of the May clause, the commission may issue an order of conditions permitting the work, assuming it meets the listed performance standards rather than shall. And again, I don't want to hijack the whole conversation, but that's kind of where I thought we were going tonight, and that's the direction that I kind of prepped the commission in before the meeting. So if they seem kind of blindsided by the discussion about the proposed mitigation, that would be probably the reason for that. So if we can kind of focus at the may clause momentarily, we can circle back to the mitigation proposal down the line. But I think the first step is this going to be something that's handled through the notice of intent, and we're going to move forward with the development, the proposed development, or is this just going to be something that will manage under the enforcement order for the fill that's been added to the site?
I thank you. If I could just state one point on that, because it is a may clause, and I use may clause, and well, obviously most consultants will use it if it's available, but the commission would say, if you're not offering, in some commissions, 70 that I'm plus, they would say, I'm not entertaining anything because you're not giving me anything. So we do offer mitigation to whet the appetite of the commission within the regulation to say, what is something that most people aren't going to be offering you, but improvement of habitat, yes, it is. And I find it, I understand that you cite the 25 and a 50, but we did look to see if Brockton had a bylaw, and we didn't find one. But I don't want to put that on the side. The main point of me saying all this was because most commissions or commissions would say, again, I'll say it one more time, what are you giving us for us to allow the use of a may clause? So yes, I had to offer that first off. And then hear what the commission says, whether or not they'll entertain it. I thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Is anyone else confused?
Well, given that, Madam Chair, I don't think that we're going to be coming to a decision tonight.
Right.
So mayhaps we should continue this to the next meeting, which is December 17th. Glenn, you and I can have a discussion between now and then and make sure that we're all on the same page. And I can, reach out to the commission. We can supply them with additional information off this call, and we can reconvene at the December 17th meeting and hopefully come to a decision to move forward. And I do want to thank the PAR, Greg, for being here, even though we've not really asked him to speak yet. So. Yeah, I guess I'll turn it over to the chair. I know that Glenn's kind of looking to speak again here as well, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Briefly, just briefly.
Okay, one more time, and then I'd really like to hear just an overview, quick overview from Bear, if that's possible.
Thank you. So as thank you for letting me speak again, ma'am. That I believe a site inspection prior to the next meeting might help for your agent, Mr. Holden, to see what we're proposing and then come into the next meeting, or the power group there also. Because just talking, but I don't think we see the full picture. I'll drive from Oxford easily to go up there to have the site inspection. And then I would like to reconvene at your next meeting and maybe have your eyes on this a little and what can be done. And then we'll take what the commission says at that point. Of course we will, because we have no choice. Thank you.
Okay. Would it be possible to open it up to the commissioners as well?
Oh, certainly. You're always welcome.
Okay.
To visit the site along with.
Yes, for the site visit. Yes. Yes, I'd appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And PAR was going to maybe the PAR group might say something, and then I'll talk to Kyle on the phone. Thank you for letting me talk, and we'll set up some inspection time unless you're going to do it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So do I make a motion to
Can we just
no.
hear from Pear first? It's PAR? Pear? PAR?
PAR, I believe is how it's pronounced. I've promoted Greg LaCroix with PAR Corp. And he's the one that did the kind of environmental assessment
Right.
for our for that first
Right.
peer review.
Right.
All right, Greg has been promoted, but he's muted.
Can you hear me now? Sorry about that.
Hi, Greg.
Hi, Greg LaCroix, environmental scientist from Park Corporation. As Kyle laid out, we handled the initial review of the NOI back in spring. And just as the chair requested, I can give a quick overview of, I guess I'll just touch base on kind of some of my um, most important comments I feel with the memo. Touch base on what I think needs to be addressed first and foremost. As Glenn went over, I think nailing down the delineation of the BVW is an important first step between the 4 and 101 flags. Um, and we talked about previously different ways to address that, using LiDAR and soils and whatnot. Moving on from that, I think also in a similar light, they're showing the edge of the stream as the limits of the restored BVW or the proposed BVW to be restored. I think really nailing down at least an estimated area of where we think that stream was and impacts from the unpermitted work is another important first step to, we have to understand what kind of restoration effort has to go into restoring that stream based on how it was impacted and to what extent it was impacted. So I think nailing down those two resource area limits are a good first step. Moving on from that, I think the replication areas. I have some concerns over the constructability of what is shown right now, especially the replication area to the south. Um, there's no construction access currently shown. The two options I see are through the neighbor's yard or through the right of way, both of which are limited for different reasons. Obviously, for the neighbor's yard, they would have to sign on to the notice of intent, and the applicant would have to get permission from them to, access that wetland replication area. If they go through the right of way, there's going to be additional impacts to the BVW that are not shown here in different or in further restoration work that will have to happen just to access this replication area in order to construct it.
I'm sorry, 1 second, Kyle. Can you show on the map where the right of way would be?
Yeah, the right of way is this this kind of street looking thing.
Oh,
This
okay.
is
I thought
paper
it said a
street.
lot.
This is
Okay,
the right
yeah.
of way
I
through
gotcha.
this area that
Through
Greg's
the wetland though.
referencing. And then
Yeah.
this kind of it's kind of cut off here, but this is
Oh, okay.
79 Lawton Avenue. There's a
Yes.
home constructed at this lot, and their
Yeah.
yard basically goes up to the lot line here. And then there's a
Okay.
fence, and then there's a pretty steep drop off into the wetland area back here.
Okay, thank you.
And that gets into my other concern about constructability. The wetland is probably a few feet lower than the adjacent yard area. So if they're going to do any sort of slope down from that yard to the wetland as a side slope to get down to the replication area, it's likely going to take up most of the width of that replication area. Generally, slopes for replication areas shouldn't be much higher than 3-to-1. So, just so the commission understands, that means 3 feet out for every 1 foot drop. That means to get down 2 feet, you have to fill in 6 feet. So it quickly becomes a much smaller replication area, I think is my point I'm trying to lay out to you. So I think a thorough, cross section and summary on constructability of that replication area would be very beneficial for my review, and I think for the commission's review as well, just to see if it is constructible at all. Because if they can't replicate in that area, the whole project, I think, outside of other potential mitigation opportunities, becomes the permanentability of it becomes questionable quickly because no matter what other kind of mitigation work you do, you have to replicate 1-for-1 for lost wetland. There cannot be a reduction in BVW on site. So just to lay out, those are two of my bigger concerns. I have a lot more comments on the plans, but if the commissioners have any questions specifically about any of the comments, I'm happy to address them, but that is kind of where PAR stands at this point.
I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Glenn?
Commissioners, any other questions?
Madam Chair and Kyle, I have one. If we do a site visit, would PAR be on site with us as well?
We can certainly organize that. That's not in the scope of their current services that they're providing for the commission. But I'll look at that, and we can always, kind of have them do that work now, and then that might impact some of the other work that's covered under that scope. I'll work with them to make that work. But this is kind of outside the original proposal that was approved and funded. But we'll work around that. So yeah, we can certainly schedule it so they can be present as well during the site visit.
And
I'll work with the both consultant groups to coordinate a time that would work for everybody, and then also reach out to the commission because it sounds like several of you would like to be in attendance too.
okay, that's great. That's great. And do you think PAR might be able to come to the next meeting? Well, whatever the next meeting is that this is.
Yeah, and again, all of this is kind of outside the scope for the funding that's been already provided for PAIR to do these services. So we'll have to take a look at their attendance at tonight's meeting was not originally accounted for. Attendance at tomorrow, next month's meeting not accounted for. These site visits. So we'll have to see what we can do with that budget. But we'll certainly take the steps necessary to make that happen.
That's great. That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Glenn Kowalski, one point, if I could, through the chairwoman. We will ask JK to give us accurate topo on this plan, if we can get that prior to the meeting, just to make it clearer on the steep slope, as the consultant was just mentioning, across the well, and that's on that
prior
point.
to our being able to get to the visit, you mean? Prior to
yes, that will be our attempt. We'll be on the phone tomorrow. We'll be on emails tomorrow to see if we can get the topo dropped onto this thing.
That would be great. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
So then I assume we need a motion to continue?
We request a continuance from this side. Thank you.
I make a motion to continue this to 0 Lawton Avenue to December 17th meeting.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Green eye.
Matt, aye. Excuse me.
Talbot, aye.
And Voris, aye. Peggy, are you available? Well, 4. We still have quorum, right?
Yeah, I think that'll be fine, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you.
We'll say Peggy abstained.
Okay. And that motion carries. Okay, that was interesting.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, next on the agenda is number 11985 Belmont Street Car Wash. This is a notice of intent, right?
Yes, Madam Chair.
This is Holmgren?
Yeah, let me promote some folks for this. We've got Scott Rogers with JK Homegrown Engineering. Spencer is with Power Corp. I'm going to promote him as well. Frank, if you would like to talk later or at any point, raise your hand. I'll promote you. And that's all that I see with their hands raised currently.
Okay. Hi, Spencer. Hello, Mr. Rogers.
Good evening.
Okay. Let's see. I guess we should begin with the applicant.
All right, for the record, my name is Scott Rogers from JK Homegrown Engineering. I assume you can hear me, right?
Yep.
So just a little bit of history on the project. We got a peer review from PAR. That letter was back in October 3rd. They had comments, revisions to be made. We made all those changes. We also had a conference call with Kyle Holden and with Spencer and Greg from Power Corp. They issued a second peer review letter back in November 20th, and I'm sure the commission and Kyle Holden has those letters. Basically, the last part of the letter said that they were satisfied with the concerns and the items. We have met the requirements of the Mass Stormwater Standards as well as the Brockton Stormwater Ordinance. So essentially, we got a clean bill of health for this project, and we would ask that we hopefully can get a order of conditions issued. So with that, I'd like to answer any questions that you may have.
If we might hear from Kyle. Kyle, do you have the map for a quick read?
Yeah, I'll pull up the map here in a moment. I'm trying to kind of put out another fire over here with my email,
okay.
so let me pull
Or
that up real quick.
Spencer, do you have anything that you would like to contribute at this point?
Yeah, I would just echo what Scott has mentioned already. We went through a couple rounds of review. Got some constructability things out of the way, got some modeling things out of the way. Got some clarity on some TSS calculations and some other calculations as they relate to the model itself, pre and post flows and volumetric flows and all these types of things. So I would say Scott went above and beyond the stormwater handbook, giving us stuff like volumes and meeting the Brockton stormwater regs as it relates to like phosphorus and some of the other sort of very specific things where Brockton goes above and beyond the stormwater handbook. So yeah, a few rounds of review. Scott and his team handled it pretty well. I think this project's in a good state now, just as our letter states.
Thank you. Kyle, you ready?
Yeah, I've got the screen ready. I can share here.
Yep.
So this is the proposed car wash development off of Belmont Street. This is the
I think I
proposed
see a
Desktop screen.
pretty
you
though.
only see what?
A
I see a
desktop.
desktop.
Uh-oh. Wrong one. Let me try that again.
I like that
Can you
blue.
see this now?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. So this is the site plan for the proposed development. As we've heard both from the engineer and the commission's consultant, the big concern here was the stormwater review. Most of everything's outside of the actual resource area, which is the bordering vegetated wetland here. There's also a flood zone, which is marked by this solid red line here. I just have a couple questions, I guess, and either Spencer or Scott can kind of chime in as we go through here. So, what are these kind of thatched square icons along the limit of not necessarily the limit of work, but the erosion control barrier through this area?
So Kyle, those represent symbols for conservation posts, for lack of a better term.
For
All
limited
right,
work posts.
And I
great,
know
thank
that there's
you.
been some conversation amongst Brockton as to what you were requiring prior to perhaps tonight. I'd like to suggest, if I could, other towns like Easton, for instance, and I believe Stoughton's another good example, but Easton requires that you put up 4x4 posts with a medallion on it. So there are other things that other towns, the surrounding areas that use that are a lot cheaper than granite posts, which I think was something that was installed on that Charlie Macy subdivision that came up earlier in the evening tonight.
Yeah,
So,
so just to kind of jump in there, Scott,
Yep.
the commission is kind of looking at these kind of on a site-by-site basis, right? So the concern of encroachment in a commercial facility like this is a lot less than that of a residential area where people are, mowing an extra foot into their, into the wooded area every year, and then 5 years later we're right into the wetland. So I think that the commission could certainly, we've done for another car wash development over at 710 Oak Street, something very similar to that, a little placard with like just a kind of a stainless steel pole or something there. And I think something like that would be appropriate for this as well, rather than the granite curb or the granite signposts or the posts there. So totally agree with you, Scott. I think that, that's something the commission should weigh in on tonight. Ultimately, let me just roll things back here. I think the commission could issue an order of conditions for this. PAR is not suggesting any special conditions outside of the commission's regular, conditions that we include with our orders of conditions. I have reviewed the plan, and the only thing that I thought would just be to clarify exactly what kind of conservation markers, as Scott was alluding to there, that the commission would like to see. Thank you for clarifying the spacing and what these icons here, Scott, are. I want to call the commission's attention to this portion of the project over here. There's an existing stormwater basin that's currently in existence, but it's very overgrown. It looks wooded. If you didn't know it was there, you would think it was just a plain wooded lot. So they are proposing cutting those trees down, but not grubbing the area. So they'll leave the stumps there, is my understanding. And they're going to clear the existing basin, but beyond that, the erosion control is basically marking the limit of work through here. A question for Scott or Spencer. Is there any work proposed with this existing outlet here?
No, there's not. One of the requests that was made by PAR was that we show some silt sock down at the edge of the riprap, which is basically the outfall from the outlet control structure within that basin, just so that it's more protection for anything that would go into the buffer zone. That riprap is pretty much at the wetland line there.
Uh-huh.
So, we agreed with Pear when they said we should provide some additional protection for that riprap apron.
And that's just basically during the construction phase of the project, correct? The installation of this erosion control here.
Yeah, it would be removed after construction was complete.
Okay. All right. I think, and that's what this line through here that looks like little Lego blocks is the proposed erosion control along here. I think when I was speaking to Commissioner Green earlier today, I thought this was potentially like a retaining wall. There is currently a retaining wall on site, and I'm going to pull up to the existing. That will be removed as part of the project and regraded to be kind of a smooth uh, grade change from the developed area to the buffer zone. Is that right?
That's correct as far as that existing retaining wall, but there is a small retaining wall proposed. If you go back to the site plan, Kyle, if you don't
Yep.
mind,
Is that for the cars to be able to go around?
you can see at the exit of the car wash, there's a drive, an exit where you leave the car wash. Then there's the curve and the straight section. There'll be a guardrail and a small section of wall in there.
Okay.
What is a snow melt conduit?
So the intent is that basically there would be underground conduits, underground heaters, if you will, so that if there was a small snow event, that the snow would melt in that area.
Mhm. That is the exit, right, to the car wash?
That's the exit, correct? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you.
All right. So thank you, Scott and Spencer. So really it was just the kind of dictating what type of conservation markers we would like to be installed. And I think this frequency along the limit of work here looks to be appropriate. So I think
As long as
that's
they're
fine.
visible, 4 feet maybe, not
Yeah,
down to the
yeah.
ground. Yeah.
And we can specify what we're looking for in the actual order of conditions.
Kyle, I just wanted to add something about the existing basin. We did have a request that Scott and his team sort of model that basin in its restored state and then own that basin's continued maintenance in the operation and maintenance plan along with all the proposed BMPs. And as far as our review extends, that was taken care of. I believe they even, Scott, you're coring a new invert in the outlet control structure as well, right? Because of the added flows and the change in flows and stuff.
That's correct.
Yep. So I just wanted to state that all that was reviewed.
Good, thank you.
All right, yeah, thank you.
Is there anyone, commissioners, do you have any questions? Sorry.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
The snow conduit, is that where you're going to be plowing the snow, or where will the snow go when you're clearing the parking spots?
Yeah, no, that's not where the snow storage would be kept. I believe there on the site plan, there is an area that's designated for snow storage.
Could you bring the map up
Yeah,
again,
I'll pull it
Kyle?
back up here, Scott.
Thanks.
Would it be on this sheet, Scott, or is it on a different sheet, do you think?
No, it should be on that seat, but it looks like it didn't show it. So we could show it on a plan. Probably what would happen is we would show an area within the parking lot, but it would
Yeah.
only be a certain amount of cars. And typically, when you get bigger storms, the client would have to remove the snow off site. He wouldn't want to keep too much snow on site. If you lose parking or vacuum space, it's loss of revenue. So
Mhm.
Thank you.
Scott, I know it's not shown on this plan, but would the area that didn't make it on here, would that have been like in this portion of like, or do you know like where that would be? The commission could potentially ask that, if any storage of snow is done on the site, that it be outside the 100-foot buffer zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
yes, Kyle, the area that you circled is probably the area. The other area I could also suggest maybe is up along Belmont Street and Coolidge Street,
Mhm.
not on city property, but there are landscaped areas that are proposed.
Hmm.
Yeah.
We wouldn't want to pile snow that's 6 feet high so you can't see anything or block visibility, but you could put snow in those areas as well. So I could add that to the plan if we needed to, or you could put it in the order conditions.
I think that given that we're trying to move through planning board quickly as well,
Yep.
that kind of revision I don't necessarily think is required for the issuance of the order. We can just include language in the order of conditions that that's if snow is stored on site, that it be stored outside of the buffer zone. And then on subsequent plans that you put forth to planning board, because I'll be part of that review as well. I can just confirm that those areas are outside the 100-foot buffer zone. And that shouldn't require an amended order of conditions or anything from the commission at that point.
That's perfect.
Good. Any other questions at all from commissioners? Oh, Lily?
I have a question. The proposed landscape area along the side of the college, I was just wondering what the proposed landscaping is exactly.
So we did do a proposed landscape plan, and as of right now, we haven't got, obviously Kyle mentioned that we haven't got any comments as of yet from planning board or from planning staff. But as of right now, the front areas along Belmont Street be mostly lawn areas, and we proposed street trees and shade trees, mostly native material along Coolidge Street, some within the parking areas, uh, some behind the car wash building. And then we also proposed some buffer zone enhancement areas up against yeah, where Kyle's pointing out there. And also there's a buyer retention area or rain garden in that location that's proposed, and we're proposing some plantings within that as well.
Good. Nice.
All right, thank you.
Good. Any other commission comments or anything?
Madam Chair, just a quick question. This is existing car lot, right? Is this Avon Auto Brokers currently? Is this that lot?
You're
Yes,
correct.
that is correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you'll raise that building completely, right? To do this, I'm sure.
Completely removed, correct.
Sharifa, you good?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
No
Fine.
comments
Is
or
there anyone from
questions?
the public? Does anyone from the public have is there anyone here that seems to be asking to speak to this?
I don't see any hands raised, Madam Chair.
No? Commissioners, what do you think? Are
I
we
think
ready?
it looks good.
Yeah, I do too. I do too.
I have no other questions.
Okay, good. Entertain a motion to close then?
I make a motion to close.
Are we
Uh,
issuing the order of conditions
Nine.
before closing?
I think closing is just closing the discussion, isn't it?
Yeah, Madam Chair.
We close the discussion and then we issue.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so I make a motion to close the discussion on 985 Belmont Street.
I second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Curtis, I.
Green eye.
Nap aye.
Talbot, aye.
Voris, aye. That motion passes. So the next motion then would be to issue an order of conditions with special conditions. There are regular special conditions. Is that right, Kyle?
Yeah, and I'll include more specific requirements about what type of signage we're going to require, which is just similar to what we asked for at 710 Oak Street, and then some special condition about snow storage.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. Good. Okay, so I entertain a motion, please, if someone could make a motion for that. For the
I make a motion to issue I'm sorry, I forgot my train of thought. What is it? Order of conditions for 985 Belmont Street with the conditions as outlined by Kyle.
Okay.
I second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded to issue an order of conditions for 985 Belmont Street. Roll call vote, please.
Curtis, I.
Green eye.
Nap aye.
Talbot, aye.
And Boris, aye. The motion passes. We have a new car wash.
Thank
Almost.
you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lentz. Okay, number 11. The next one is number 13, 0 Franklin. This is notice of intent. Um, Kyle, do you have, let me see, who is it? 5 wetlands?
Yeah, let me check the attendees list. Sorry, I'm trying to help someone connect to the meeting. So it looks like she's in now, maybe. All right. 5 wetlands. I don't see. This is Ken Thompson. I don't see him in the attendees list. I can kind of summarize this for the commission. This is a notice of intent for the construction of a single-family home at an as of yet unaddressed lot on Franklin Avenue. We opened this public hearing, I think, in October, and we asked that the applicant submit a revised plan set that included an erosion control barrier, a modified wetland line, and the inclusion of a large pile of fill that's currently on site. And the applicant has responded and provided us with a new site plan. So I'm going to share that new site plan with the commission. We can kind of look at that. And beyond those changes, I think we're close to an order of conditions for this site. The one outstanding thing is that fill pile and how we want to potentially move forward with that, addressing that. So I'm sharing the site plan now. And again, we looked at this a month ago or so. Originally, the wetland delineation ended here at flag KT4. I asked them that they continue the wetland delineation through this portion of the property because that might impact the buffer zone. We're still only within buffer zone here. We're not directly impacting any jurisdictional resource areas. So in general, we're ready to move forward. The one thing that I've got questions about from the commission is this fill pile back here in similar developments on that we've just permitted recently. We've asked that the applicant remove historic fill as part of their development of the site. This fill pile was not included on the original site plan, and I don't think they referenced it in the narrative or anything. So I think the commission should weigh in on what's to be done with this or clarify what the applicant's intention is. They're not here to speak about this project tonight. But my thought is while they're back here doing all this work, they should remove the fill just while they're here doing things, right? So my question for the commission then would be, we have a 25-foot no-touch policy. We normally require those conservation markers to be installed along that 25-foot line. Here, as depicted, that line would kind of cut through this back portion of the property. I've got some pictures I can share with the commission about what this area looks like back here. And the question is, do we want the applicant to provide a buffer zone enhancement plan for this portion that will be then, kind of separated from the rest of the development by a fence or some sort of marker through here? Or are we just content with them removing the fill and kind of leaving this kind of more or less as is and just putting up the markers as we would normally? So that's kind of the question that I have for all of you. I've got some photos that I took today that I can share with you. So this is let me go back actually. This is like a long lot, so we're looking like down the lot here. This existing fence is between the two properties on Franklin Avenue, and the fence. I'm looking south, so this is the property to the east of the lot in question. Here's the fill pile in the back. And I couldn't quite get a shot, but the wetland is kind of back in this area, and you can see there's a fence associated with this property back here. But this is the area in question, right? So like the next door neighbor's fence corner goes, it's around their exact lot. So the wetland, the wetland flag is like right here. So 25 feet from that would be kind of where I'm standing, and I'm standing on the fill pile in this photo. So the question is how we want to address this area back here. Does it make sense to have them put a fence that kind of begins, kind of just out of frame here, like 25 feet along this fence line that's existing, kind of block off this area after this area has been, the fill's been removed, and then potentially some plantings done back here? Or how we want to handle that. The concern is, I'll go back to the lot, but the lot is very oddly shaped. It's not a nice, neat square. I'm not exactly sure where all the lot lines are. I imagine maybe the property line might go here. I don't know if this shed is part of this property or this property, but there's a whole bunch of different property lot lines that are kind of all scattered throughout here. And does it make sense to have kind of a weird fence kind of just here or not? So not really sure.
Do you mean a fence or do you just mean markers?
Markers. Well, however.
Can't hear you. Whoops.
Whatever the marker,
Okay.
we will require some sort of marker at the 25 foot, whether that be a fence, conservation markers, whatever. I'm going to go back to that site plan again because the area in question is kind of right back here, and it's between this existing building.
Yep.
And so I just don't know how we want to address this. And so we should probably make that decision before we issue that order of conditions, whether we want a buffer zone enhancement plan to be submitted for this area that's within the 25 feet, that's within this lot, and the area that's currently just lawn over here, just leave that as it is, and this property, leave that as it is, but focus on the area of this lot that we kind of have a jurisdictional authority over, that they're doing work on now, or how the commission wants to move forward with that.
Scott, sorry, Kyle, is the green line the limit of work? What is
that's like the property boundary. This is the entire like lot. It's a weird shape.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Fine. Okay.
No, the erosion control barrier is this kind of thin orange line on the down gradient side.
Right.
And it goes basically along this existing fence line and circles back over here. It doesn't continue all the way up here. The grade is kind of sloping, from the road here, like down towards the wetland in this direction.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I like the idea of the restoration plan in the 25-foot buffer zone, in addition to markers.
Yeah, we would just want to get that restoration plan submitted to the commission before we issue the order of conditions. So if the commission would like to see like a buffer zone, we'll call it a buffer zone enhancement plan to be submitted. I'll need to reach out to the applicant again. They can get that together for us, and then also maybe we can ask them to include a narrative of what they plan on doing with the fill, or that can just be a special condition that we require the fill to be removed, and then that can be incorporated in the buffer zone enhancement plan. But if that's something that we want, we need to ask the commission or the applicant to provide that to the
So we
commission.
would then continue till next month and then the next meeting and ask for that in the meantime.
Yes, if we want that buffer zone enhancement. If we just want the fill pile removed, we can incorporate that requirement as a special condition, and we can issue the order of conditions tonight.
If you're going to be removing the fill, wouldn't that be the time that you'd want to make sure that it would be replanted, right?
Yeah. And to be consistent with how we've handled fill removal in other projects.
Yeah.
Recently.
Yeah. Commissioners?
I agree. I'd like the fill moved in the buffer zone enhancement plan for the 25-foot buffer zone area.
All right.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I agree 100%. We might as well stick to what we've always been doing with everybody else. We ask for the enhancement and they do it right.
Yep. And it looks nice.
Right, exactly.
Beautify Brockton.
All right, thank you. I will convey that to the applicant, and hopefully they'll get that to us maybe even before the December meeting. But that will be the last requirement, and then we'll move forward with the order of conditions. Thank you. I don't need a vote or anything other than we can just continue this to the next meeting.
Entertain a motion to continue.
I make a motion to continue 0 Franklin Avenue to the December 17th meeting. With
I second.
Buffer zone enhancement.
Okay. The motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Curtis, I.
Green eye.
Map I.
Talbot, aye.
And Voris, aye. That motion passes.
Madam Chair, I do see that we have a hand raised. I didn't notice that as we were going through the vote to close, but this is Lisa's iPhone. I'm going to go ahead and promote Lisa to panelist. I believe she would like to talk about the 0 Franklin Avenue file.
Certainly. Well, we have not closed it out yet, so that's good. Hi, Lisa's iPhone.
There we go. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Yep.
All right. Hi. My name is Lisa Crowley, and I live basically across the street from the Coxes, who are on the left of the property. And I thank you all for your hard work. I'm really glad it sounds like you're going to do the buffer enhancement. My question is that orange line kind of blocking off the new single-family home and the Baptistas property. Will they be able to build in that area, in that orange area to the right of that, if you're looking at the map?
Yeah,
So
Lisa, could you just
existing
now that I've got the site plan pulled back up, can you just clarify? You're referring to this lot over here, existing building number 13?
Correct. Yep. And
Okay.
like that fill pile, are they going to be able to put anything on that area? Is that all now considered wetlands?
Oh, I'm sorry. So you're saying of the lot in question, this unaddressed lot, this portion of the property, is that what you're asking about? What they can do back here?
Yes, like from the existing fill pile, those big circles.
Yeah.
And if you keep moving to that orange line and then to the right, like
Okay. But now we're in a different lot, right? So my question to you is: are you referring to the lot that's highlighted with the green, or are we talking about activity in the lot adjacent to the east of the lot in question?
I guess kind of both. I'm just trying to figure out what's going to happen in that back lot, and if that's just going to be a buffer zone, like that back area, because I know that the house is going to be closer to the Franklin Ave side. But there's a big, it's like, are they going to, what can they do back there?
You can in the buffer zone, they could propose to do really anything that zoning and building code would allow, but because it's in that buffer zone, they would have to come to the commission and get some sort of filing before the commission and get approval from the commission before they move forward with that new development. Not a new home necessarily. I'm sure that doesn't meet the zoning of this area. But if they wanted to put a shed or a pool or a patio, things that aren't included on this site plan that's being before the commission now. It's not that they can't do that as long as it's outside of this 25-foot buffer zone. They can do things here, and even within the 25 foot it's a commission policy. We don't have a local ordinance. But anything within the red line here, technically would require commission approval unless it meets the qualifications or meets the definition of a minor exempt activity. I've got your email. I saw you out walking your dogs this morning, and I can shoot you over some information about what those minor exempt activities are. But in general, safety, just to be safe, if any work's proposed within this buffer zone area, they should at least reach out to me and I can offer further guidance at that point. It's not completely against the rules, but they do need to at least get conservation eyes on it probably before they move forward with anything.
Okay, so let's say they build the house and 5 years later they want to put in a garage back there. They would have to come back to the Conservation Commission
Yes.
or another addition.
Yes.
Okay. I think, I'm just trying to parse out some of the information that I don't really know about when it comes to wetlands, because it seems like everything is buildable as long as you get permission.
I don't know how long you've been on the call. We were talking about another property, Zero Lawton Avenue, that is proposing direct impact filling of a wetland. There was some historic fill there that kind of complicates things, but that one, there is going to be direct wetland impact, and that's a little more dicey and harder to kind of permit. It's not impossible. It's doable. If you want to put a new roadway or rail line through a wetland, it's not impossible to do, but there are additional mitigation measures that have to be included in that proposal to offset the impact to the like direct impact to that resource area. This proposal here, all work is only proposed within buffer zone rather than any wetland resource area bordering land subject to flooding or any other jurisdictional resource area under the Wetlands Protection Act.
Sure. Nope, just trying to get a grasp on what can kind of be done and what can't. I think the house is too tight, but I went to the zoning board and spoke my mind. But I'm glad they're coming, and I'm glad you guys are doing a great job. And I guess we'll see how it all goes.
All right. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public? Crowd?
I do not see any additional hands raised, Madam Chair.
So that's all set, right? We already continued that one.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see, number 14 was continued. Next one is 15, request for certificate of compliance for 940 Belmont Street. And that was Holmgren, right?
Yeah. I don't know that anyone is here to speak to this from Homegrown Engineering. We initially reviewed this request for certificate of compliance last month, and we asked. I noted a few things that still needed to be addressed. Mainly the removal of the erosion controls and the installation of signage along the limit of work. And this is at the VA hospital. I followed up with them few days ago and they sent me some photos and all that work has been done. I'll go ahead and share those photos with the commission here. If that's all right with the chair. What we're looking at here is in the foreground is the stormwater retention bay that was part of this construction. This like darker green grassed area is beyond the limit of work for the proposal for the fuel station. But I'm going to zoom in a little bit. You can see that they've got signs all the way across this area. the whole VA hospital is basically surrounded by a wetland. In fact, it was they filled a wetland years ago when they actually constructed this initially. So basically, around the entire perimeter of the VA hospital is wetland. So they have signs all over the campus that read "No mowing beyond this point." And this is the sign that they use to delineate areas that their staff can mow and maintain, and areas that are off limits. Through discussion with staff at the VA hospital, I gave them the go ahead to use the same signage that they've already got on campus along the limit of work here, and so they've done that. So here is this again. The foreground is the area within the limit of work. The erosion controls did continue along here. They have been removed. And then we've got conservation signage, basically at the limit of work where this tree line is, separating the stormwater feature here in the foreground from the wetland area in the background there. Beyond that, I think that this project was done extremely well. No complaints. Textbook. So I I'm recommending that the commission issue that complete certificate of compliance for the 940 Belmont Street fuel station construction.
Okay,
Any questions for me or about these photos?
none from me.
Okay.
Commissioners? No. And we don't need to go to the public for issuing a certificate of compliance, so.
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Okay. I entertain a motion then to issue a certificate of compliance for 940 Belmont.
I make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 940 Belmont Street.
I second that motion.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Curtis, I.
Green eye.
Matt, aye.
Talbot, aye.
And Voris, aye. That motion passes. Thank you. Good. And the last one on under this particular section is notice of intent for 23 Thornell Street soil remediation.
Yeah, one moment, Madam Chair. Let me.
GCA.
Yeah, and I think we have some
December
people
1st,
here
right?
to talk to the commission about this filing. Ultimately, last month we were reviewing this, and at the 11th hour, right before we were moving forward to issue the order of conditions.
Was it EPA file number?
Yeah, we read the technical comments, and they wanted some additional information about the status of the isolated wetland, whether it was qualified as isolated land subject to flooding or not. I promoted a couple people from the applicant side to talk about that. I'll turn this over to you through to the chair, and I'm going to send that an email to Lisa with some questions that she had in the chat. So
Okay, so Anthony, hello.
Hello again. Yeah, this is Anthony Damiano with GZA.
Can you just give us a quick summary of what you found?
Yes, absolutely. According to the DEP comments, which accompanied the DEP filing number, they had requested we take a closer look at the isolated feature out on the within the parcel, which we had delineated, part of our wetland delineation. But to take a closer look at whether it qualifies as an isolated land subject to flooding resource area. So I went back out to the site on October 30th and took various measurements, a rough transect across the entire area, taking measurements of depth based on staining and saturation throughout that area. Consulted some old photographs as well, just to get a better idea of the extent of flooding for that area. And basically what we included in our response letter and our figure provided to Kyle a few weeks ago, we found that the average depth was in fact 6 inches or greater across that area. The middle portion, the deepest, gets up to 8 to 12 inches approximately. The northern and southern area is more like 2 to 4. So we felt confident that, based on those calculations, that the area actually does fill in with, on average, 6 inches or greater of water, and the total area of the area of inundation is greater than that quarter-acre area. The quarter-acre is about 10,800 square feet, and we were over 11,000 based on those measurements. So that therefore this isolated feature does meet the definition of isolated land subject to flooding. But as we included in our letter, the and the NOI itself, the scope of work does not anticipate impacts to this feature, and it does not have a buffer zone, though we are within, I believe, 25 to 40 feet of this area. We have proposed matting, timber matting, to access our excavation area located in uplands, and erosion controls around this isolated feature that, though is not regulated under the Brockton bylaw or the WPA as an isolated wetland, it is isolated land subject to flooding.
Okay, thank you. Kyle, you look like you're in the middle of still. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
No, I can chime in. Just to echo what Anthony was saying, I concur. Really, what DEP was wanting is to make sure that we are accurately documenting any and all jurisdictional resource areas while we issue the order of conditions, because that delineation is then like the official delineation for the commission that's valid for 3 years. So we want to make sure that we include all resource areas, even though as Anthony was mentioning, if they're stating that this does meet the definition of isolated land subject to flooding, we will include that in the order of conditions and cite those documents, making that statement, making that assertion, and but that doesn't really impact the permitting that the commission's asked to have done here. So I can bring up the site plan in a moment, but as mentioned, the only work really that's within a jurisdictional resource area within that area is bordering land subject to flooding, and there's no permanent impacts proposed to that area. This is just the access that they're proposing to get to the area where the soil remediation is required. And then the rest of the work is well, not even within buffer zone, because the isolated land subject to flooding isn't jurisdictional. I'm sorry, isolated land subject to flooding is jurisdictional, does not have a buffer zone. The isolated vegetated wetland is not jurisdictional, and so therefore it has no buffer zone there. So really, we're just looking at BLSF, and no permanent impacts to that area. So I've got the site plan again, just to refresh everyone's memory, that I'm going to go ahead and share now. And we'll just review this briefly. So the area where the soil will be removed, and then again, the soil is going to be, this contaminated soil will be removed and processed off-site. But the access area is this kind of red shape here where they're going to come in, and that will impact the bordering land subject to flooding, which is this dotted line here. Erosion controls are proposed around the area of disturbance, then all the way down through here around the access area, and then along this is the isolated vegetated wetland that was delineated. The isolated land subject to flooding is basically within this geometric shape, more or less. But again, no work is being proposed within that isolated land subject to flooding, and that does not have a buffer zone associated with it. So now that we have correctly identified all jurisdictional resource areas, the commission can move forward with the issuance of that order of conditions. I reviewed our discussion that we had last month, and the only there was one special condition that was being discussed kind of at the end of that meeting when we read those DEP comments initially. And there's one large tree that its root system will be impacted by the soil excavation here that is being proposed to be felled and taken down as part of this project. And rather than just leaving that tree like in the resource area or around the resource area, we can ask that that be removed along with the contaminated soils. And I think that was part of the original plan as well, but we can just clarify that in the as a special condition in the order of conditions.
Okay. Commissioners, questions at all? Is there anyone from the public that's is a hand raised or?
Sorry, I'm very distracted here. I don't see any hands raised, Madam Chair. Thanks.
Okay. Good. So then I entertain a motion, I guess, to close.
I make a motion to close the discussion on 23 Thornell Street.
I second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Curtis, I.
Green, aye.
Map I.
Talbot, aye.
And Voris, aye. That motion passes. Would someone make a motion, please, to issue a
Order of conditions.
yeah, order of conditions. Thanks.
I make a
Order of
motion to issue an order of conditions for 23 Thornell Street.
The special condition about the tree.
With the
I second
special conditions outlined by Kyle.
I second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Curtis, I.
Green, aye.
Map I.
Talbot, aye.
And Voris, aye. That motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. DeMaio.
Thank you very much. Have a good
Okay.
night.
Thank you. Was Mr. Lindbergh part of? No. Okay. Is Kyle away on vacation?
What's that?
Hi.
Hello?
Okay, I think we're all set with 23 Thornell.
Yes,
So we're just the violation discussions now for Liberty and Exeter.
correct. So the first is 127 Liberty Street. I believe it was at the October meeting. The commission reviewed a request for a certificate of compliance, which was ultimately denied by the commission. And then at the same meeting, the commission voted to issue an enforcement order to the property owner for basically the problems that were observed and documented during that certificate of compliance request. So we did in that enforcement order require that the property owner or their representative attend the originally scheduled meeting on the 19th, which was postponed to today. And so Frank Gallagher is on the call with us tonight. He is the engineer that is working with the property owner. And really because neither the applicant nor the representative were on the October call when we kind of were discussing all the shortcomings of the as-built and all the required monitoring and things like that that were associated with 127 Liberty Street. We required that they attend the subsequent meeting so we could review all of those things and make sure that the applicant knows what the commission is requiring of them before they file the after the fact notice of intent, which is the next requirement, next step of that enforcement order. So Frank's on the call with us today. Just so the commission is aware, Frank came into my office shortly after the October meeting, and we met and reviewed the enforcement order and kind of went over all of this, but he was kind enough to join us tonight again anyway. So I'll pull up the enforcement order. We can review the requirements, and Frank, you can ask the commission any questions that you would like, and vice versa. But I guess first, I'll just read through the requirements of the enforcement order. There are 5 requirements. So we are requiring an after-the-fact notice of intent application be submitted to the commission. We said December 31 to permit all work and construction currently completed at 127 Liberty Street that has not yet been explicitly approved by the commission. So to parse that apart a little bit, there are several buildings that are in existence there that never were there. This is a long project. It had an original order of conditions, an amended order of conditions. But in that amendment order, like the approved plan for that amendment, like included some of these buildings that weren't explicitly cited as being constructed. It's just kind of a mess. Frank and I talked about this, but we want to document everything and approve everything after the fact that's currently constructed. There was an invasive species management plan and monitoring schedule that never was followed through, that was required under the original order, so that's going to be tied in. Um, Documentation confirming that the floodplain restoration area was constructed according to the standards should be included in this new filing. There's a wildlife crossing that required monitoring that was never submitted to the commission. So we need that wildlife crossing to be monitored and confirm that it's, functioning correctly. And that's it. So it's really just like going through what the commission is requiring of the applicant to include in their new notice of intent filing. I know that's a lot. There's a lot more to it. Frank, the denial letter and the body of the enforcement order really goes into detail about all of these things. But rather than reading through all those documents now, you've got a copy of those. Those copies are available on the City of Brockton website. If you've got questions, you can ask me after this call about the details of that. But otherwise, I'll throw it over to the commission to talk to Frank Gallagher, the engineer, and a representative of Ross Messina, the property owner of 127 Liberty Street. Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Gallagher. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Is there anything that you would like to present prior to any questions that we might have?
No, no. Kyle has been clear, and the commission, I guess, in your letter is clear. So we have our marching orders, and we're in process now. We already have a new wetland line delineated for the site. I'm in the process of locating that so I can plot it on a new plan that we'll submit. Yeah, we know what we need to do, and we know that we need to get something to you by the end of the year, and we will do that. I can guarantee you.
Commissioners, do you have anything that you would like to present to Mr. Gallagher?
Madam Chair, I just think we work with Mr. Gallagher and we keep the progress moving forward, and we
Yeah.
close it out.
Sounds like a good plan.
Yes.
Good. Okay, I really appreciate the time that you've spent waiting,
That's
especially.
quite all right.
Thank you so much.
I'm in my kitchen, so it isn't so bad.
Isn't Zoom wonderful?
I
I
tell you,
know.
I've been doing this a long time. But to not have to drive out to meetings is kind of nice.
I know. I know. I agree, especially on a night like tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. It sounds great. Thank you for your cooperation.
Okay.
Yeah, we
You're
look forward
very
to
welcome.
working
And I thank the commission for your patience with us.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
So the last one is 10 Exeter Street.
Yeah, that is correct, Madam Chair. I think there are two individuals on the call tonight for this. So I'm going to promote Tom Flatterly. I'm sorry, Tom. I completely butchered your name. You may want to just read that into the record for the commission.
Alrighty.
But I can kind of start us off if you would like, Madam Chair. However you want to proceed here.
Yeah, if you'd like to start. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Kyle.
Okay, so this is 10 Exeter Street. This has been on the commission's agenda several months, in the past several months. We've issued two enforcement orders to the developer. The second and most recent order was issued on September 19th. And in that order, we required the installation of a fence along the property line and then along the 25-foot buffer zone to the BVW that's nearby the property. Secondly, that enforcement order required that the erosion controls that had been installed were beginning to fail, that they augment those erosion controls or replace them. For the most part, the erosion controls have been managed somewhat. There are still issues with those. But the big concern and the reason that I've added this to the agenda tonight is so the commission can talk about the fence that's been constructed. So there is a fence in place at the site. I've been going back and forth with the applicant, just kind of ad nauseum, and I just kind of want to throw this over to the commission for you all to weigh in on this fence, and then we can go from there because ultimately, this fence is required in the enforcement order. The fence is not something that wouldn't necessarily have been required under normal circumstances. The order of conditions that was issued for this property does require conservation markers along the limit of work, which would follow the property line and actually would cut farther into the usable space on the site plan. I can share that in a moment, but the enforcement order, we're just requiring it along the 25-foot buffer zone. The reason that I required the fence to be installed, there's a whole enforcement history with this property. When they were excavating the basement, they dumped uh, all sorts of fill from that excavation off the property line into a city-owned parcel that was within the 25-foot buffer zone of the wetland. And the first enforcement order was kind of dealing with that. And the fact that the construction began without that pre-construction meeting, and there were no erosion controls of any type that were installed when we issued that first enforcement order. So the first enforcement order, they removed all that fill. There was a required restoration of that buffer zone that they have completed. That planning is done. And then the second enforcement order came because they were continuing to encroach beyond that limit of work, and there were erosion control issues. And when I issued that second enforcement order, the applicant or the property owner was had signs up for open houses. They're obviously looking to sell the property, and I was concerned that any prospective buyer might come into that site and think that the usable yard space was significantly larger than the actual lot. So that's why I required that fence to be installed now rather than kind of at the end of the process. So that's kind of where things are. I'm going to pull up a copy of the second enforcement order first, share that with the commission. Maybe.
And while you're doing that, Mr. Flaherty, what's your relationship to the applicant?
Well, I'm an attorney, and I actually represent Carlene in connection with the sale of the property. I actually was just pulled into this today because Brad Holmes had a conflict and had an in-person appearance before a different conservation board. And he asked me at the last second if I could cover this. Of course, if I had known, as I'm still sitting in my office, been here since 7 a.m., and now it's 8:30, I probably would have went home. I don't typically, I'm a real estate attorney, 35 years of experience. I'm certainly familiar with orders and conditions. We come across them all the time. I was not involved at all with respect to what's taking place.
Okay.
I represent Carlene in connection to the sale of her property. We do have a buyer. We do need to get a partial certificate of compliance because I do know that this board is going to require 2 years of growth. Brad provided me with a letter, which I think was addressed to Kyle at the Conservation Board, indicating that the work has been completed. And so he asked me today if I could jump on this call and on behalf of my client. I know that she's been trying to sign in, and she's had some difficulty to do that. So, I mean, obviously, we're here to do whatever the board requires. We do have a buyer. They've been anxiously waiting to close. We can't close because of the outstanding order of conditions. We were hoping to get a partial certificate at some point to be able to close. But of course, again, making sure we do comply with the mitigation measures required of this board. And I think, and again, Kyle, you can correct, I think those have been done, but it sounds like that maybe not completely to your satisfaction.
Maybe yeah, Kyle, if you'd like to present now. I'm sorry, I just wanted to get your, yeah, go ahead, Kyle, if you could continue as you started.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Tom. So this is one of the associated documents that I included in the second enforcement order, kind of showing the intention of where this fence should be installed. And again, this is not part of the actually a part of 10 Exeter Street, the property. This is a paper road. I think it's Tom. I'm not sure if you're aware. Is this a private or a public way? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, as I said, I represent her as a seller attorney, not a buyer's attorney. I mean, if it's a paper road, then under Massachusetts general laws, she would own to the middle of the road as a direct abutter. That's if it's a paper road. I'm not sure.
In any case, that's not a huge important detail. I just want the commission to know that like the lot itself, 10 Exeter Street, is this kind of odd shape here that comes straight down across this way and up over here. This oh, it says it's a private way right here. So yeah,
Yep.
out to the center line. So in any case, I asked that a fence be installed to separate the city-owned property, which is down here. This green area is the area that was restored and required to be restored. This is actually the restoration plan that Brad Holmes put together for the commission. So I asked that a fence be installed along this portion of the site and then follow the 25-foot buffer zone to the BVW flagged wetland, which is down over here, and kind of encroaches into the wetland because the city of Brockton has that 25-foot no-touch area. The original order of conditions required that the fence be or conservation markers of some sort be installed along the limit of work, which is actually this line here with these yellow circles here, and then kind of continues along down this way. So in any case, the applicant has installed a fence, and we've gone through several different revisions of that fence placement, and now, as Tom had mentioned, they are looking to get sign off from the commission. We are not entertaining the requests for a partial certificate of compliance tonight. That will be heard, if at all, at the next meeting on December 17th. But before we move forward with that request for that partial, I want to get the commission to weigh in on the fence. And if they think that the fence as it currently is constructed is an appropriate kind of marker, a permanent marker to delineate the property from the conservation area and the 25-foot no touch area. So this is kind of what I had originally given to the applicant as far as the request goes. So I was out at the site also earlier today and took some site photos that are more recent. But I think that the fence is, again, my opinion. I'm kind of removing myself from this discussion as far as decision making. I'm kind of punting this over to the commission. But in my mind, conservation markers need to meet several criteria, and those are they need to be a permanent marker. This is something that needs to be, and this is part of the order of conditions. It doesn't expire. This is not an expiring condition. This markers of some sort need to be in place for the length of like forever, right? Not forever, but basically forever. So that needs to be a durable material. It needs to be constructed well, and it needs to stand up to the weathering and all sorts of things like that. So I'm going to first start with photos that I took in November, and I reached out to Caroline after I took these photos, and I think there's been additional work done since these photos were taken, and then I'll show you the photos that I took at the site today. But most of my concerns are more, we can kind of see what's happening here. So this is the fence. Again, this is at last month. We required a post and rail fence to be installed. We talked about post and rail fences earlier as to why that type of fence is preferable to not impede wildlife movement. But you can see here that, there are nails sticking out of the fence. This could be a safety hazard if there are children here. We don't know who's buying this property. There are nails sticking out all over this. They're using different types of wood. Some of this is pressure treated. I don't know how old this piece of lumber is here that was used to kind of fill this gap, but there are nails sticking out all over the place. Some nails are rusty nails with this old piece of lumber. The construction of this fence is extremely subpar, in my opinion, and it looks terrible. And I think that if I were the buyer and I didn't know that this fence needed to be up forever, the first thing that I did after I closed on this house would be to rip this thing out because it's ugly. This is not a properly constructed, sturdy fence in any way. This is an old piece of lumber. This beam, this cross beam's nailed to this cross beam, which is nailed to the anchor beam, the 4x4 here. Like this is my nephew could do better than this. To not put too fine a point on it. Um, the property line through this area. Again, so that shows kind of the issues with the nail sticking out. I'll pull up the photos that I took today to kind of share with the commission and everyone. So the site is obviously not stabilized, and that's relevant to that request for the partial certificate of compliance that you guys have submitted for. There's bare dirt. I know it's not the great time of year now to be seeding anything, but the site isn't stabilized, which is a requirement to generally get that certificate of compliance. I took this photo today. Like there's nails that are like connecting these two beams, but like this is a slop job. This is embarrassing. Um, this is supposed to be along the property line. This is a straight line. The property line between the paper road, the city-owned parcel here to the left, and 10 Exeter Street is a straight shot. It's a straight line. People install straight fences all the time. This is again taken today. This is like what are we doing here? This is pretty sloppy. In addition to that, this is a photo of material. This is concrete that's been thrown over the fence into the buffer zone enhancement area. There's extra construction debris. I'm on the buffer zone enhancement area here. There's stuff thrown over here. We're looking at this is I took this shot. This is the foundation of the building as it comes really close to the lot line. It's hard to kind of see that, but there's a pretty steep grade change right through here. Not stabilized at all. There's erosion through here. I'm concerned about the foundation here and getting this washed out. This needs to be stabilized. It should have been done something here this fall. The area closer to me here, this is the only area the whole site that's been seeded to grass, or at least the grass has been taken. The rest of the area is just it's a muddy mess out there. This is the new erosion control that was put down, and it's again being overtopped by all this sediment rolling down this very steep, unstabilized slope. Um, Again, here's just another shot. Generally, Tom, just so you're aware, these erosion control silt socks are considered to be functioning when the sediment has built up less than 50% up through the height of the sock. So if this is a 12-inch diameter sock, this isn't. I think this is like a 10. Say it's 5 feet or 5 inches of sediment on the up gradient side is considered still functional. Anything above that, there's danger of it overtopping, which is happening again. So the erosion controls aren't in good shape, even though they were replaced recently. Here's more concrete, more construction debris in the restoration area. More silt sock. Again, here's that area that's very, very steep. This is probably the steepest portion of the site, and there's been no effort to stabilize it at all. And we more concrete in the restoration area, more concrete in the restoration area, more construction debris beyond the limit of work. Here's the back portion of the lot. There's no seed been put down here. This is completely open, no site stabilization at all. I don't think you guys are anywhere near close to getting to be ready to even apply for that partial certificate of compliance. The commission has been willing to work with other applicants with stabilization during the winter time, but something needs to be done here. It's really up to the applicant as to what is done. Obviously, you want to run that by the commission before you go ahead and do that work, but this is not ready for a partial certificate of compliance. And I understand the reasoning that you need that because there is long-term monitoring required for this buffer zone buffer zone enhancement area over here. But there's no language in the order of conditions that requires any sort of certificate from the commission before certificate of occupancy or conveyance of the land or anything. I understand that the buyer wants that to protect themselves. Totally understood. But there's significant work that needs to be done here, in my opinion, before the commission should be willing to move forward with any sort of certificate of compliance, partial or otherwise. Just a complete. I mean, it's just open dirt through here. There's been no effort to stabilize the site. The erosion controls are continuing to fail. The fence is awful. So that's kind of my take on it. But again, more concrete in the restoration area. I'm throwing this over to the commission. I've been out to the site so many times. I've helped marked the line. I had J.K. Holmgren go out there and paint the line where the fence should be. I, I don't know what else that I can do individually to help facilitate this project so it can get to a point where the commission feels comfortable moving forward with any sort of certificate or even signing off on the work that was done under the enforcement order. One final comment. I have spoken to the acting commissioner of the Brockton Building Department, and he is in agreement that there needs to be work done here, and he has conveyed to me that he will not be issuing a certificate of occupancy until the commission is satisfied with the work that was required under the enforcement order. So specifically the fence and the erosion controls that are failing still. So at that point, I'll turn it over to the commission members, and you guys can ask questions. I got to take some water.
Would stabilization of the site also be included?
That wasn't a specific condition in the enforcement order, but the site needs to be stabilized before erosion controls are removed and before, we issue that final certificate of compliance.
Okay, but not for the partial.
Well, that's up to the commission. I mean, the reason that they're filing for the partial rather than the complete certificate of compliance is because now the enforcement order is requiring this monitoring for 2 years for this buffer zone enhancement area.
Yeah.
Due to the impact that was happening during the construction. So obviously, a partial is appropriate at some point down the line, when everything outside of that monitoring has been addressed to the satisfaction of the commission. It is within the commission's power to call out specific special conditions that haven't been addressed yet in that partial certificate. So it's really up to the commission's discretion. But at this point, I don't think they've even addressed the enforcement order from September satisfactorily. So I think that's step one. Once that's done, then I think the commission could entertain that partial certificate potentially. But I don't think we're ready to even look at that. I think there's plenty of work here that needs to be done still with the fence and the erosion controls. But again, I'm throwing that at the commission.
Do you have any idea when this set of erosion controls was actually instated? You said it
was around the time of our October meeting, I think, shortly around the time of that meeting. I know Brad was at that meeting, and either the erosion controls were going in that day, or they had gone in earlier that week, or they were going in later that week, sometime around October 15th.
Okay, and they're still topped off.
Well, that's how severe the erosion is at the site. The grades are crazy here, and there's been no effort to stabilize the upgradient portions of the site, and they're relying solely on these erosion controls. And when there's no stabilization upgradient, they're just going to continue to get overtopped.
Okay.
I'm sure with the weather today too, it doesn't make that even better. It's gonna be worse.
Yeah.
May I interject for a second? So again, my role had nothing to do with respect to what's going on here. And I'm just obviously seeing these pictures for the first time, and I've had some discussions with my client with respect to what she needs to do, and obviously seeing the condition of the fence. So I need to have a conversation with Brad Holmes. I think Brad has been kind of running point on this to try to educate my client. She's a not too experienced developer. By the way, the CO is already issued on this property. We have a certificate of occupancy. So,
right. Well,
yeah. So that being said, I don't disagree. Seeing some of the pictures and what you require, sometimes requires a firm conversation with the client. And I'll obviously have a conversation with Brad that these things need to be taken care of. Because she does want to sell the home. She has a very high interest mortgage that she's paying. She's got a threat of a default, meaning the lender will foreclose. And then we've got a whole different situation involved. So we're kind of, quote unquote, under the gun. I hate to use that terminology. But that being said, Kyle, I recognize your concerns. And again, this is typically as a real estate attorney, I don't go out and look at my client's property, even with an order of conditions. But I do see the concerns that the board has, and I need to have a conversation with Brad, as he's indicated that in his opinion, you know, he, my client's fully addressed the board's concerns. But just as a homeowner, if I was buying a property and I saw that fence, and I had young children, as you've indicated, it's definitely a safety hazard for all kinds of reasons. And my client is also obligated to provide a warranty to the homeowner. So I think at this point, I mean, certainly I'll listen to the board, but I think, Kyle, you eloquently stated what your concerns are. And I'm going to talk to my client tomorrow and talk to Brad, but I'll gladly hear from the board as to, again, my goal is hopefully to get a partial certificate that only gives them a few weeks to do that to your satisfaction, to the board's satisfaction. But as I said, we're kind of under the gun to sell the property to these buyers, but realizing that, my client's got to take care of some things, sooner than later.
Well, and I know, Tom, that you have submitted the request for that partial certificate of compliance, and that would go on the December 17 meeting. And I'd like to hear from the commission to see if they even want to entertain that request at that meeting, or if that's something that we should be looking at potentially at the January meeting at the earliest, given the state of the fence today, the erosion control situation, and the site stabilization. I'm gonna throw that to the commission, whether or not, because like we're kind of talking about all these issues today, talking about them again in 2 weeks. I don't know, unless they've been addressed, in which case we need revised materials from the applicant demonstrating that all of these things have been done, right? So like, the current application that you've submitted, uh, that's not reflective of any of these changes that will be made after this conversation. Does that make sense?
No, it does. As I said, I've not been involved at all with respect to this process. Brad simply had a conflict at the last second. And again, if I had known, I would have been home to jump on the Zoom call as opposed to sitting in my office at 9 p.m. So I'll have the conversation with Brad tomorrow. I think what I would respectfully request the board is to defer taking it off the agenda at this point, so at least I can have the conversation with an expert, to see what, if anything, can be done. I mean, today's Tuesday. Whatever anything can be done before the end of the week to give you an opportunity to go back out to the property and to make a determination at that point as to whether there's been any progress. Because as I said, I'll certainly emphasize to my client that the bottom line is you're not going to be able to sell it unless these things are done.
Yeah, and just to get some clarification, I've been saying what I don't like, and that only goes so far. I think that I would like to hear from the commission of what they would like that fence to look like. That way, your client has some guidance as to what to do rather than what not to do, and that may be more beneficial than me just screaming and
Sure.
yelling, stomping my feet. So I would like to hear from the commission as to what you all are hoping this kind of property delineation and 25-foot buffer fence to look like.
Do you think that a complete constant continual fence is necessary? What if there were fence posts every 10 feet along that, with markers? Would that work?
Yeah, I mean that's up to the commission's discretion. So certainly that is an option. My concern with the fence installation, obviously, it's not very straight.
No, I
But
know.
the survey work that was done there, it wasn't super clear initially. And this is when this was first proposed back in October. I was out there several times with Holmgren Engineering, who were doing the survey work for the applicant, and they did the stakes. And the property bound is pretty easy for them to mark, but when they actually got to the point where the 25-foot buffer zone starts to encroach within the lot line of 10 Exeter Street, that curve, that line, wasn't very accurate. I had to go out with Isaiah from my office, and we measured that, and they were off by several feet, and there was only like one stake out there marking that buffer zone. So, you know,
Pushed back into the buffer zone as opposed to being up
yeah, it was too it
25
was
foot.
too close to the wetland flag rather than too far away. So it was not an accurate line that the surveyor had put out there, which is unfortunate. So there have been just a lot of issues with this. If you know, I think that at this point, if you know, posts with signage might be. We don't have the signs yet. I'm working on getting some signs printed that can be attached to posts later. But certainly post could be an option rather than the fence. If the fence is too challenging to get installed correctly, like that's an option. But I think the commission should weigh on the type of material and what you're really looking for there.
Mhm. What we've
Um,
seen before is that if there is not good signage, then people overlook the fact that there happens to be a restriction on that wetland area, and the lawn just gets encroached into the wetland. You know, it just, for some reason, the order of conditions doesn't get followed. You know, I guess the order of conditions, right, doesn't really get followed. And we've seen that over and over again, where people have just encroached into the wetlands because it hasn't carried through from sale to sale. So, I don't know.
I've got a couple of photos I can share from another property that also put post and rail fences in. This is at 360 Pearl Street. Let me see if I can find the site photos
There was
there.
one gentleman that said they had done like small sections.
Yeah, right, and not a full continuous fence. So let's see. I think I've got some photos here from last month that I can share. Let me find the right set of photos here. Okay.
Because I totally agree with you, Kyle. I would do the same thing if I bought a piece of property like that. The fence would be down before. Yeah.
So this is this vinyl fence back in the background is kind of fencing in the actual usable backyard of this property, but the property line continues along this area, and they installed these you know, just sections of post and rail fence. I think that's also fine to do sections like this. I would prefer something personally with this site at 10 Exeter Street. I would prefer something like this where, you know, if we can't manage to do the whole thing, to do sections like this. But this looks clean. It looks sharp. It's very visible, and there aren't safety hazards associated with the construction of this line, right? And you know, there's a corner here, but yeah, and it's got these you know, signage that will eventually be required at 10 Exeter Street as well. You know, saying what this fence is for, not to remove, and things like that. Again, Tom, I am working on getting some things printed. The signs don't necessarily need to be installed right now at 10 Exeter Street before we kind of move forward with the partial certificate. But the fence itself, or some sort of agreed upon delineation barrier posts, needs to be installed before we move forward with that, in my opinion.
No, I don't disagree with you. I love, you know, I like that setup right there. Again, it's on my property, but I certainly will be talking to Carlene and to Brad tomorrow, first thing. Um, I think that I don't know who put that fence together. I'm a lawyer. I'm not a carpenter, but I could have built a better fence than that. So it's especially just you know, the nails. I'm not that type of lawyer that you see on TV, but you know, if some child got a, you know, a nail in his hand, or anybody, it's just an open invitation to a lawsuit. So no, you know, appreciate it if anybody else on the board has any further input. I've been taking notes. Um, again, this is not my forte. I typically do not appear before boards, occasionally a court, but so this is not my arena per se. I know there are lawyers that do this all the time, but I think Brad, he didn't throw me under the bus. He just had a conflict and said, "Can you cover?" And I said, "Sure. What's the big deal?" But now I know it's a big deal. So, but if the board has any other input, but I'm happy, and I think you've stressed the fence is the critical issue in the erosion controls
I
and getting
think
something in place.
and the stabilization, actually, if you
Stabilization, right,
stabilize, then you don't have to worry as much about
right.
everything rolling over the top of
Mhm.
the
Yep,
yeah.
And whether the site's stabilized, I mean, we can all recognize that it's the middle, well, just beginning of
right.
December, and like planting
Yeah.
a lawn at this time of year is not really
Yeah.
practicable. Um,
But there are
that
matting you can get, right? That can
Well,
help to stabilize.
the commission, we looked at that property on Main Street last year that was in a similar situation. They needed to close yesterday, and what they ended up doing is they put sod down, and that was sufficient at that time. I don't know that that's where we are at this property at 10 Exeter Street. They were looking for the complete certificate of compliance rather than a partial, Tom. So like there is some wiggle room as far as remaining conditions that still need to be addressed before that complete certificate. And really this is up to the commission's discretion. But if everything else is in order, they could put off the planting of that, and the stabilization of that site until the springtime. If that's not something that has to happen, you know, immediately. So, all that said, I again, I mean, normally our filing deadline is 2 weeks ahead of the meeting
Mhm.
that will be heard at. So the commission has time to visit the site. I have times to write reports and all this type of stuff beforehand. Our filing deadline for the December 17th meeting is tomorrow, and any revision to the site as it currently stands will impact the submission packet that has already been put forth to the commission. So again, I don't know that, you know, is it appropriate to consider this at the December 17 meeting, or is this something that should be looked at with a new application after all this work's done? Then we look at it in January.
This originally was on the agenda for the early December meeting. So now, I'm sorry, this was in the November meeting, right? Originally on the agenda
No,
for
no,
November.
this discussion that we're having now is really just about the violation and the
Oh,
enforcement
yeah, okay.
order. We have not received,
Got it.
I just received the request of the partial certificate of compliance like last week. So
Okay.
the earliest that could have been heard would be at the regularly scheduled December meeting, which is on December 17th.
17th, yep.
However, after this discussion tonight, the site's clearly not ready for that now, just on the erosion controls and the state of that fence, let alone everything else. So my question is, that application packet that was submitted to the commission is like a snapshot of time, right? This is where things are when that was submitted. That's no, if they're, based upon tonight's discussion, we are requiring modifications at least to that fence. There's going to need to be new material submitted to the commission. Our filing deadline is tomorrow at noon. My question to the commission is, do we want to hear that on December 17th anyway, or we just want to have this discussed at the January meeting?
January sounds fine to me.
I would also agree with the January meeting.
To facilitate the fence, because I recognize also that this fence has been installed and modified several times over the last month. To try to attempt to not have to just continue on with these slight revisions and then back and forth. I think it would be beneficial to come up with a kind of a solid idea discussed tonight, that we plan to implement, and then before it's actually done, maybe the commission members or myself as their representative could meet whomever is building the fence on site to make sure everyone's on the same page as to what the commission's expecting before that work is done. So hopefully we only have to do that one more time rather than, several more iterations.
Well, as I said, I'm certainly I'll be talking to Brad Holmes first of all to thank him for allowing me to present this tonight. Secondly, I'll be talking to Carlene, my client, in the morning, um, and again, I'm not involved in the construction at all. I'm just a legal representative helping to sell the property to a buyer who now I don't know what's going to happen because although we could close because we've done it before. I think there would be some agreement between the buyer and the seller and so forth. But by the same token, I think it's important, and I'll certainly talk to my client tomorrow. Uh, Perhaps with I don't know if you've been meeting with Brad with respect to the fence, or is it you've been meeting directly with my client? She's not, as you know, um, not the most sophisticated developer. I mean, she's not the builder, but she's kind of running the show, I guess. So I think there's been some difficulty. Um, I can't answer for her because again, I haven't been no involvement in this process whatsoever. So all I can say is I'll talk to her first thing tomorrow. Um, I think it's a great suggestion to whoever's going to put the fence in to meet with you to get some guidance. I like the pictures you showed on the other project. I think that would be a perfect solution. It's not terribly expensive to do that because you don't have to do it the entire length of the property in the buffer zone. So I think that's a terrific idea.
Well,
And that's
and
what I'll
again,
be recommending as her attorney if she wants
right.
to get through this.
Commissioner Green has her hand raised.
Go ahead, Lil.
I would agree, Kyle, with having whenever we decide to get the fence, have someone to really communicate what we want. Because my concern is with the sections, it's been hard enough to get it straight with a connecting fence. I don't know if it makes it any easier when you have partials that you're trying to make sure is straight. So that'd be my concern is just making sure it's straight on the property line because we've had the issues with the zigzagging and that's with a fence that's connected. Also, my other concern is all the debris that's been thrown over into the buffer zone enhancement restoration area because I can imagine that first environmental report would not be very positive.
Right. So obviously that all that debris needs to be removed from the buffer zone enhancement area. I guess my question to the commission is, do we want a solid fence, kind of like what's there now, that goes all along the property line in the 25-foot buffer, or do we want segments? I don't know. To Commissioner Green's point, I have concerns about these segments following the actual line as well. We had the surveyor go out to the site and kind of flag things. I don't know if that's necessary now. I'm not the fence builder either, Tom. So I think that whomever is building this needs to kind of make sure that they're doing it right. So we only have to do this one more time, right?
Right.
So I guess commission members, do we want a continuous fence or are we good with sections? What's the spacing of the section? I want to be very explicit into what the commission's looking for so the applicant knows what they need to do to meet the requirements that the commission is kind of implementing here.
I think a continuous fence as opposed to a spaced one, because there are other houses around, and I just think a straight line would be very clear of continuous fencing.
I'm also more partial to the continuous fencing, especially with that concern of the encroaching. It's been, multiple times the enforcement orders that the lawn's been encroached on. I feel like a continuous, nice looking fence with proper signage would get the point across more.
I don't know.
I also think that there's not enough time between now and the December meeting in order for the client to meet all of the conditions that have been outlined by Kyle, including the restoration of the foliage. So I would say we need to continue this to the January meeting.
I agree that January would be the earliest that it would be done, but what about the fence thing? Do you think that posts alone with signage?
I would prefer a continuous
Yeah,
fencing. Yeah.
even though she's had a lot of difficulty doing it.
Well, to that point, I think that this is really like, someone that she knows who's just kind of throwing this fence up as a favor or whatever. Like a contractor who does this type of work regularly can install a fence. Fences are installed all over the place every day, and they don't all look like this. So there are options out there. She just needs to, pay someone competent to go out there and install a fence as required by the commission. I think it's as simple as that, really. Just have someone else do the work that's installed a fence at least once in their entire life before.
Okay.
All right, so Tom, we're looking for a continuous fence along the area that was outlined in the enforcement order. And because of the short time frame between now and the next meeting, which is December 17th, we're looking for, if you are moving forward with that partial certificate of compliance request, to be targeting the January meeting. Commissioner Green?
And are we the removal of like the concrete and other items that are already currently in the buffer zone?
Yeah, absolutely. That should be done certainly before that application comes forth before the commission, for the, I mean, that can be done tomorrow. Those
Yeah.
things are it'll take all of 20 minutes to go out there and clean those things up.
And then what about the silt socks currently
Um,
that have once again been overtopped?
Yeah, I think that so Tom, I know Brad can kind of talk to you more about this, and they did do some of this on some portions. You can take like a shovel and kind of excavate on the upgradient side of those socks and kind of remove some of that material, but that's kind of a short-term solution, because that void space that you're opening up by shoveling that material out gets filled very quickly. So um, I think this most recent time, the additional silt socks that were used to augment the previously existing socks were put down gradient of the initial sock. I think that at this point, it may be worthwhile to put another set of socks up gradient, of the sock that's currently there. Maybe. I mean, I don't know the best practice there, but certainly the erosion controls need to be looked at again and augmented in areas at minimum as well.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your input. Appreciate it. And I'll certainly be in touch with my client tomorrow and Brad as well.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Okay. Well, I think that's it for the agenda, correct?
I believe so, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair and Kyle, real quick, I don't want to beat a dead horse on the fence portion. I mean,
Yeah.
are we okay to say, okay, post and rails, okay, or give me a picket fence, wooden picket fence that's 4 foot high, the straight line with signs on it? I mean, it's cheap. The amount of time that Kyle's put into this, and she could have did it once, she would have been done.
I know. It just seems like even if I know.
So the reason that we went with the post and rail is to allow that wildlife movement that we talked about before. A picket fence, are gaps between those vertical posts, but that does impede, like, a rabbit from moving in and out of the yard. So certainly, again, as referencing our previous discussions about fencing, we can require any type of fencing, and as long as the commission approves it and it's in the buffer zone, it's fine. It could be a solid fence, it could be a picket fence, it could be post and rail, but post and rail was the go-to, and that's what I put in the enforcement order, to allow that wildlife movement, not to impede things there. And that's just
Which, by the way, was probably the cheapest and fastest to install.
That one was really cheap.
Well.
Yeah. I just thought sections would be even less expensive. And then the little white sections really did look nice, but
yeah.
I'm still concerned on apparently drawing a straight line.
Yeah, it depends how
Yeah,
close
because
they
we've
are.
had those issues with the survey lines and just following straight lines. Like I share Commissioner Green's concern about those segments not necessarily lining up or being in the right angle. Because again, this isn't just a straight line. It follows that
Yeah,
wetland 25-foot buffer zone, which is kind of, slowly curves into the lot.
my
Yeah, and
concern is that, go ahead, I'm sorry, Lil.
so I was just gonna say if it's a really nice looking straight line, whoever buys the property next will hopefully will like the fence. I feel like sometimes if it's sections, I mean that other section looked really nice, but for like especially with the encroachment, I don't know if they feel like, oh, I don't want partial fencing.
Yeah, and I think that, I think that it was the right call to ask for a continuous fence. Again, the foundation of the home that's constructed, it was within the existing footprint of the pre-existing building, but that's like feet away from the property line, and given the slopes involved there, like I think having a solid fence through that area is good for the encroachment issue. I mean, it would be just it's so tempting to expand your yard through that area in particular, just so you can like mow it or move your equipment around the back of the house, right? So anyway,
Okay, I make a motion to adjourn the
thanks,
meeting.
Peggy.
I
Okay.
second.
All right,
Okay, I don't think you
bye-bye.
vote on that, right? Okay, Kyle, you'll let us know about the site visit?
Yes, I'll
Okay.
coordinate that and get that going.
Okay,
Okay, great, thank you.
happy dreams about fences.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Good night,
Good
everyone.
night.